Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is October 29th, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, for the first time, and I think we haven't had a guest on like 2 or 3 months or something.
It's been quite a while.
We used to do guests all the time. I don't know. Falls off. But this week, we do have a guest, and that is Lance Ferrell.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Lance, before we get into the show, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, since the people have no idea who you are. What do you do? What are your politics? Anything.
I'm Lance Ferrell. I go to Texas State University. I'm in the College Republicans with Bobby and Enzo. Like old school heavy metal, Chinese food. My politics are pretty, right-wingish. I'm just an old school Republican constitutionalist. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we met Lance through the College Republicans group here.
Yeah,
at
we've
Texas
gotten
State.
to know him, and offered for him to come on, and he came on today. So, special treat for you people if you do like our shows where we have guests. We finally did one. It's usually too much of a hassle to find people to be guests anymore.
Yeah, during the summer months, we dropped off there for a while, but now that school's starting back up, we're getting to meet some more people in the area. It's a lot easier too, and politics as normal is also starting to pick back up too.
Yeah.
So,
which politics
forward.
usually takes a lull during the summer, but it picks back up after school gets in session. So I guess before we get into it, I just want to bring up the PayPal thing. If you want to donate and help us pay for the show, because we actually have to pay to do this, we do have a PayPal link in the description on this, paypal.me/Trump Republic Radio. In regards to the midweek show, I have no idea what we're going to do. I've been thinking about things, but I don't know.
And also, if you do want to get in contact with us, our email is in the description, but it is trumprepublicradio@gmail.com if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. But with that being said,
let's get into the show. So this week has been kind of interesting. I don't know. The first big thing that we're going to get into is this Trump dossier stuff. There's been a lot of controversies around the Trump dossier and the uranium stuff, but this week the dossier has been the big source of commotion, and that is because they've uncovered this week that you remember the Pissgate document? That's
Yes.
what I'm talking about. That's the Trump dossier, the one that says that Trump hired prostitutes in a Russian
prostitutes
hotel
to pee in the bed that Obama stayed in when he traveled to Moscow.
and they'd have to refer to themselves as Obama and Michelle. And
ever since the thing actually came out, it's been highly debunked. No one believes it's real. And, a lot of people say, it started as a 4chan prank.
that's what I thought it was.
And that's what a lot of people still think it is. But now it's, information's come out in recent months that,
it seems like there's more behind it.
Yeah, that there was actually some actual political motivations between the people who wrote it. And then there's some, British, MI6 agent that apparently had something.
Yeah, Christopher Steele. He was... So, it goes back. It was originally opposition research. It was initially done by a conservative website called the Washington Free Beacon, which is pretty much like an anti-Trump, website or whatever.
It's one of those never Trump GOP establishment type websites that you see out there.
So they started doing their research initially, quote unquote research. I don't have any idea how they research this stuff. But initially it started with them funding Fusion GPS,
right,
which is like a company in Russia, apparently. And they were doing this quote-unquote research, and at one point, the Freedom Beacon, they stopped funding this. And then the DNC and the Hillary campaign get on board funding it.
Well, I was going to say, what we've actually found out is that there was about a 1-month period in there when both the Washington Free Beacon and the DNC and the Clinton campaign were both paying them before Washington Free Beacon stopped. So I'm not saying that has anything to do with anything, but there was a slight overlap there for about a month or so.
Yeah.
And this was back in like early 2016, like February or March.
So they continue to, do this dossier, research into supposed Trump, connections with Russia. They spent millions of dollars on this thing. Both the current, head of the DNC, Tom Perez, and the Clinton campaign have said, like, oh, they didn't know that we were doing this, but they were directly funding these guys, which, are Russians. So it's funny that the Russian conspiracy is always thrown on Donald Trump. And, it also plays into the uranium deal connection to Trump. These people have way more connections to Donald Trump or more connections to Russia than Donald Trump does, which is always just the funny thing about it.
Yeah, what I also find really funny is that, if you think back to the Christopher Steele, this British MI6 agent that apparently gave the information for this, his lawyers admitted back last April that his work was not verified and was never meant to even be made public. So, like, even by then, if you were doing your research, you'd be like, okay, I want this verified before we go publishing it. Because remember, it was BuzzFeed that published it first.
It was
CNN picked
BuzzFeed
it
and
up from there.
You can
CNN
trust
was it
BuzzFeed,
too.
though.
Oh, yeah,
Obviously.
you can always trust BuzzFeed News. But it's also come out this week that Obama's campaign, Obama for America, paid almost $1 million. They paid $972,000 to Perkins Cole, which is a law firm which hired GPS. So even
Fusion GPS.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, Fusion GPS. So even then, you can even say that Obama's campaign had his hands in this thing as well.
Yeah, so you're saying the people that don't like Trump are funding opposition research to make Trump look like he did something illegal.
Precisely. And, I was watching the news this morning, and they were talking to Trey Gowdy, the congressman from South Carolina. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. And he was talking about how pretty much what they were doing with Fusion GPS was even though it was it was the firm they were using to do, opposition research, they were essentially funneling money into it. Money laundering their campaign cash through this firm to try to dig up information on other candidates. Now, regular, normal opposition research is part of politics. There's nothing illegal about that or bad about that.
All sides do it.
All sides do it. But when you're essentially taking a third party and then laundering your money through it to let them do all your opposition research so that your hands look clean in the matter, that's when things get a lot more sketchier.
Yeah.
And what separates this from like standard opposition research is usually when you get this opposition research, you don't use it to obtain like bogus warrants on people so you can start doing surveillance on people.
You want to get legitimate information.
Like what they're doing with Donald Trump, because they use this dossier to, start wiretapping the Trump team.
To get the FISA court.
Yeah, to get the FISA court
warrants in order to wiretap him. And they did wiretap several people from his campaign, including Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn. A lot of people think Trump himself. I mean, when he tweeted and said Trump Tower was wiretapped, people made fun of him for that. Then you find out, wait a minute, guess who had a residence in Trump Tower? Manafort.
Yeah.
Who was wiretapped. So yes, there were wiretaps in Trump Tower. There were people on his campaign that were wiretapped because of this bogus dossier that was written.
And not only wiretapped, but they were also unmasked by Susan Rice.
Right, and if you understand the whole concept of unmasking, when you obtain a FISA warrant, if you're talking to like a foreign national, that's the whole point of FISA warrants, is to conduct, because you can't spy on American citizens. But you technically, right. But you can spy on foreign nationals residing in your country. And a lot of times those foreign nationals will talk to American citizens. That information, those names are blacked out. Unmasking is essentially taking those like records and not putting the black bar over that person's name. Yeah. That's essentially. And then, Lance, you want to say something.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, like, it's been almost a year of this Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia. There's still nothing, and they just keep they're just doing whatever they possibly can to make it look like Trump did something colluding with Russia, which, even if Vladimir Putin wanted Trump to win, so what? Like, I just don't understand. Like, Barack Obama was colluding with plenty of elections when he was president, and yet no one cares. Like, he made videos saying, don't vote for Le Pen, vote for Macron.
Yeah.
Like, actively telling citizens of another country who to vote for, and people here were like, oh, that's cool, we don't like Le Pen anyway. But for some reason, Trump, with no evidence at all, and it's been almost a year, they just try to do whatever they possibly can to connect, even if it's like doing things like unmasking. They'll do whatever they can to make it look like Trump colluded. I don't even know if they believe it at this point.
I don't know, but it's just so interesting that the more this goes on, the more you find out that those fingers that were supposed to be pointing at Trump are actually being pointed back at Democrats, the Hillary campaign, the Obama campaign, high-level people in the DNC. They're the ones who are complicit in all this stuff.
Yeah.
The more that we found
I mean, the New York Times reported on the Uranium One deal. This is the New York Times. This is Breitbart. This is a conservative view. This is the New York Times reporting on the Uranium One deal like 2.5 years ago. No one talked about it. Like, this has been going on for a long. This isn't just like recently people figured this out. Like, there have been articles about this actual Russian collusion for years, and no one cares.
And in regards, getting back to like the whole just fusion GPS thing by itself, the House Intelligence Committee has actually said that they are now getting access to Fusion GPS's bank account records.
Yeah.
So we'll actually be able to figure out who really started paying this company here. We'll see where that goes. Obviously, they just made that announcement recently, so we'll have to follow that up on another show. But you're absolutely right with the whole what you were talking about there, and I kind of guess that maybe we can move on unless you have something to say to the next story.
We can use this to transition to the next thing that we have here. You have to think about the repercussions of what this dossier has brought about. Okay, it's complete garbage, bogus stuff, but it actually has had profound impacts on Trump's ability to do things. Mm-hmm. Because the Mueller probe, which is the next thing we're to get into, is based entirely off of two things. It's a dossier created with Democratic collusion with Russia, and then illegal leaks by James Comey. Mm-hmm. And that's, the thing that's holding Trump back the most, almost. Which, let's get into the Mueller thing now. We have some new reports on that. Mueller is going to be making his first indictments from his probe on Monday. So when you're hearing this, you might have already, seen this happen.
Yeah, it's that federal grand jury that he got in Washington. They've approved the first criminal charges in the grand jury, relating to this whole Russian election interference stuff. Now, the thing you have to remember is that information should not have been released to the public. Okay?
Yeah.
Because grand juries operate in secrecy. So the fact that they're even saying that, we're going to issue an indictment, that information was leaked and should not have been leaked. But granted, it was, and you can't change that now. So now we just got to figure out who's being indicted. And I'll tell you one thing. It's not going to be Donald Trump. It's not going to be anyone whose last name is Trump. It's not going to be Mike Pence. If anyone, it's probably going to be Paul Manafort. That's what the consensus is right now. And if you think about, Paul Manafort does have a lot of shady background. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have been talking about recently that Mueller's investigation was looking at wire transfers that Manafort made back in 2005. Yeah. Decade-old things, 12-year-old wire transfers to people that are might have been in Russia or anything like that. In which case, there probably is enough there to indict Robert Mueller.
But it's not going to go back to Trump.
Not Robert Mueller. Indict Paul Manafort. And you're absolutely right. None of that is going to come back to Trump.
But they think it will, and that's why they're doing this. And they're hoping that it's going to come all the way back to Trump, and Trump's somehow going to get impeached and removed from office, and all of a sudden we go back to just being a leftist paradise. That's what they want to actually happen. They don't understand, that's not how this works.
No, it's absolutely not. And, if you think about it, Manafort, he's a shady guy. And if he has to fall for this, I'm totally okay with that.
He's not even entirely a Republican, though. He's just a political operative, and he was with the Trump campaign for a month. He was only there for the RNC. That's all they brought him in for. He was pretty much there to be a whip to get these people not to freak out on the
to
the
make
RNC
sure that the
floor.
delegates don't change their mind last minute. Make sure that they actually stay with Trump.
Yeah.
That's why he was brought in for that whole entire
process.
process.
He wasn't even the Trump campaign head. We didn't have a head of the campaign at that time. He was brought in as the chairman of the campaign.
Yeah.
He was there for only a month, and then he was gone.
Yeah, no one even knows who this guy is. But the media is going to portray it as if Paul Manafort was the whole architect behind the entire Trump campaign. He's completely involved. He's the one doing the shady deals. When in reality, no one even cares about this guy.
Yeah, and if you want to even say okay, fine, Manafort has a residence at Trump Tower in New York City. There are also a lot of other famous people that live in New York City, or not New York City. There are also a lot of people that live in Trump Tower. Mm-hmm. I was trying to look up the names, but there are some pretty high-level people that have residences in Trump Tower. Bruce Willis, I believe, has a residence in Trump Tower. So if Bruce Willis makes an action movie, Are we going to say that that action movie has ties to Trump? No. And that's essentially what you're saying here. So it's
like I said, they're grasping at straws, man. They're doing whatever they possibly can. Like, the left has this unhealthy obsession with removing Donald Trump from office. They will do whatever they possibly can to do that. And this is just what they think is the best way of doing it.
Yeah, and also, if you want to say Trump has ties to Russia because Manafort has a residence in Trump Tower, did you know that Qatar Airways, which is owned directly by the Qatari government, has a corporate campus in Trump Tower? That's essentially where they have their corporate office building. So are we going to say that Trump has ties to Qatar, or Qatar, depending on how you want to pronounce that correctly? Are we going to go so far as to say that? No. No one's saying that. You know why? Because the Democrats don't care.
Just they don't care.
If the Democrats cared, they'd be like, hey, Trump's got ties to Qatar. But no, we're not doing that.
Qatar's not the spooky bad guys right
No,
now.
they're not.
Only the Russians are the spooky bad guys.
Right now. Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, watch out for that guy.
It's just, this entire thing is just absolutely insane. And, like I said before, if Manafort's going to fall for this, fine. The left is going to have their little victory parade. The right's not going to care.
It's not going to lead to anything.
It's not going to lead to anything. Because if they actually had anything on Trump, in the last year and a half of investigations, it would have come out already.
But see, the media, we know it's not going to lead to anything because we actually know.
Yeah.
But the media is going to push the story, for a very long time.
They're going to push this all to 2020 and 2024.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is somehow what they're going to use to describe how Trump needs to be removed from office. Whereas everyone, like we were just saying, it's not going to be a big deal for anyone, but the media is going to make it look like that because we have to remove Trump somehow.
Exactly. And I guess the last thing that I wanted to add was that in regards to the whole, whatever the Clinton campaign or anything had to do with this, Trump actually said he's instructing the Department of Justice to open up an investigation into the Clinton campaign itself's dealings with Fusion GPS.
Yeah, he should.
So that's probably going to start this week, and maybe that'll finally get her locked up. I don't know.
Yeah, people will celebrate if there is any sort. I don't think anything's going to happen to Hillary Clinton.
No, she's Hillary Clinton. She'll be fine.
She's, no matter how dirty her hands are, absolutely nothing will happen to her. Every person in America will take the blame for it before she will.
And I personally think it's better for national unity not to send her to jail. But don't underestimate Trump's desire to put her away because it's going to look good to his base, okay? So if this isn't in for him to actually move on her and fulfill the campaign promise of lock her up, he's going to do it.
And if you're worried that literally throwing her in jail will hurt his chances at reelection, what Trump voter is going to say, oh, Trump actually locked her up, I'm not going to vote for him the second time around?
Yeah, it also depends on if it's proven that she did something actually illegal, there's no problem here. Trump has every right.
Yeah.
But if it's something it looks like she did something illegal, and Trump were to just say, no, that's 100% illegal, she's going to jail, I think that's what they're trying to avoid here. But I don't think anyone would object, if it's proven she actually did something 100% illegal, she's going to jail. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the consequences of Hillary's actions resulted in her not winning the presidency. I think that's her consequences of what she's done.
And that's, that you're absolutely right. That's blame enough. That's punishment enough as it is.
That's probably worse than going to jail, to be honest.
You hear the stories about how she was crying on election night, swearing, and apparently broke a lamp. I heard one person said drinking.
She didn't come out that night, man. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So that's punishment enough to live your entire life thinking I'm going to be the president someday, having the entire media on your side, the entire Democrat Party on your side, half the Republican Party on your side, only for it quite literally last minute to just be swept away from you. That's punishment enough as far as I'm concerned. But hey, if they investigate her and they find out that she should have charges filed, I'm all for it. I'm not going to counter signal that at all. But that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
Let's move on to the next thing that we have here, though, and that is the House passed the $4 trillion budget that the Senate passed the week prior this week.
Right. So we talked about this last week on the show, how the Senate passed it. It's a lot harder to get stuff passed in the Senate than it is the House, just because of numbers games there. But what's interesting about this budget that was passed, this is the first budget that Congress has passed in 8 years.
Yeah.
So that's very significant.
They usually just do like things like omnibus packages and continuation
resolutions
resolutions.
most of the time. Which, if you don't know a continuing resolution, whenever you pass a budget, budgets only go through a certain date. So what happens if you don't pass a budget past that? There's a continuing resolution clause inside those budgets which say, if a future budget cannot be reached by this deal, then certain levels that we have already pre-signed into this law will continue or rise to certain points.
Yeah, just a way to kick the can down the road.
It's essentially that, but
which
it's
is what we did the entire Obama presidency.
Right, the entire Obama presidency. So we finally have a budget passed. Trump's going to sign it. This includes $10 billion for wall funding, too.
Yeah, and more, Border Patrol agents and more ICE agents.
And also, what's also worth noting is, most of the time, the House will pass their version of a bill. The Senate will pass their version of a bill. Then they have to reconcile the two together. The one the House passed was the exact same bill that the Senate passed. So we don't have to worry
there's no reconciliation.
We don't have to worry about reconciliation. So that $10 billion for wall funding, it's there. We've got it.
I mean, it should be. The Republicans control the House and the Senate and the White House. We were told, like when Obama won, elections have consequences. They said that all the time. Elections had consequences. Well, guess what, Democrats? Elections have consequences. Like, it's their turn now. It's Trump's turn. It's the House and the Senate control the Republicans. They should be getting all this through. They should have done this earlier.
Precisely. We've said that in the show before. What power do the Democrats have? They don't control the White House. They don't control either branch of Congress. They don't control the Supreme Court. The only thing they control right now is district courts and circuit courts that have Obama-appointed judges on them, and Bush-appointed judges too, because they're pretty much the same. But what the point I was going to make was, we talked about this last week, how when it passed in the Senate, every Democrat voted against it, and every every Republican except for Rand Paul voted for it. But even then, Rand Paul said, I'm completely on board for tax reform. So that's one vote that you didn't have for the budget that you do have for tax reform. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great is this does pave the way for tax reform too.
Yeah, we've left ourselves, because we put it to $4 trillion, we've left around, because they're aiming for about $1.5 trillion in tax cuts. Now that this is passed in both the House and the Senate, we can move on to be making those changes and then vote on that and get it through. And we've already shown that we have the votes to do this. It's a lot easier to get the people on board to do this than it ever was to do a repeal of Obamacare. This stuff's going to get done, and it'll be Trump's first legislative victory. And we need this really bad. It's been way too long before we've had one.
Yeah, and even though, at least you and me, and I'm not sure about you, Lance, but I probably, our biggest issue in voting for Trump was, immigration. Mm-hmm. But, if you look at public polling, the top two things that are always not always, but that were the highest two issues in this election was the economy, number one, and immigration, number two. The economy's doing great.
Yeah.
Immigration is doing great. Trump's fulfilling promises.
I mean, we see it differently because we live here in Texas.
Right.
Whenever I talk with anyone from, the Northeast or anyone, not on the border, they see immigration, like you said, it's up there, but not, number one. We live here. We see it. I mean, we know how bad it can get. Like you were just showing the clip from MSNBC. As they're filming, people literally just jump over the wall.
Yeah.
And that was just during the middle of the day that happens.
Yeah,
this is an epidemic.
Yeah,
man.
People that don't live here don't realize how bad it is. But we're going to get to immigration during our immigration portion. But I guess the point that I was trying to make there was that, even if you believe that immigration is the most important thing right now, which I would agree. I think immigration is probably our most important thing.
And should have been his focus from the get-go.
Passing tax reform is still part of the MAGA agenda.
Yeah.
And it is very important that we get this done. It's needed. It is definitely needed. So, if this is the first thing, if this is all he can get done before the midterms, that's perfectly fine with me. Because once the midterms come around and you get some of our people in there, you don't have to worry about that. You can pass a repeal of Obamacare in 2019. Mm-hmm. And then in 2020, when Trump's running for re-election, he say, "Hey, we got Obamacare repealed." No one's going to care what happened the first 2 years of his presidency.
Yeah.
They only care what happened in the last 2 years, because that's what it's going to be recently on people's minds. So you get some of our people in there. You have your legislative victories in the final 2 years. These first 2 years won't matter.
He should have done tax reform first.
Maybe.
I don't know.
For me, it's just immigration's my most important, most important thing to me. I just want to get this stuff out of the way.
Yes.
So, like, say we do tax reform, say he gets Obamacare repealed. All he has to focus on is building a goddamn wall. And he'll only focus there. Mm-hmm. He has nothing else to worry about. Okay? I just want to get this out of the way. I really don't care if this stuff gets done or not. I don't know. It's not like a conventional Republican thing to say. But there's more important things to fry. But obviously doing tax reform is extremely important. And, you know, Steve Mnuchin has talked about they're going to backdate this to the beginning of the year. So if they pass this before, you know...
You could pass this December 31st.
Yeah. This is going to be applicable to the entire year of 2018. So... out of the get-go, you're going to see all these businesses be able to spend money knowing that they're going to be getting these tax cuts. And, you know, I've been seeing reports this week because the one thing I always talk about with tax reform is cutting the corporate tax rate down. We're at, like, what, 35%?
We're at 35%, highest in the world.
Highest in the world. And, you know, initially we were aiming for 15%. Currently they're talking about 20%. That's still great. It's fine. It's whatever.
Great improvement.
If you could get that done, you could see GDP growth. We're currently at 3%, which we're going to talk about pretty soon. We could see the GDP growth be at like 5, 6, 7%. And, yeah, we won't have to worry about losing elections when the economy is doing that well. No one's going to be voting against the party that did that.
No president in a good economy has ever lost re-election.
No.
So, you know, I guess we should just go ahead and move on to the next story that we have on here, right?
Yeah, let's move on to the next story, which is a thing that me and you take very personally that we've done entire shows on, and that is the opioid crisis. So this week, Trump declared the opioid crisis a public health emergency, which kind of took him long enough. Like, he should have done this months ago. But what this does, it allows him to allocate more money towards it, set some price fixing on certain drugs that help people that are on opioids. So, at least he's acknowledging the situation for what it is, and hopefully we can get under wraps. But the opioid crisis, or opioid epidemic, whatever you want to call it, is extremely bad in the country. So,
like when you said it took him long enough, like I think Trump was in the same situation that a bunch of people are. Like me, for example. You know, you hear about the opioid epidemic, and you're like, oh, there's a lot of people overdosing. But I encourage anyone listening to this to actually look into this. There is an unbelievable amount of people dying. I mean, I think the last statistics that was like more people died recently than in Vietnam from all these overdoses.
No, yeah, I was just pulling up because we keep all of our, we keep all the outlines that we do for shows. We did a show on the opioid epidemic. And just going over how bad it is here, drug overdoses become the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50. 2/3 of those come from opioids. U.S. heroin users jumped 135% since 2002, while heroin deaths have skyrocketed 533% in the same time frame. In 2016, 62,000 Americans died from overdoses. That's up 19% from 2015. And I mean, 62,000 people, that's more than people died in Vietnam. In one year, which is our most costly war we've ever engaged in. So, yeah, I could go on, but yeah, the situation's really bad, and especially bad in, rural areas that don't get as much focus as most places.
West Virginia is the state that it's hit the hardest at.
Yeah.
The thing about, us here in Texas is the Southwest really hasn't been affected as much as other areas of the country, especially the Midwest. Midwest has been hit very hard.
Not with heroin, at least. Like we deal with like other drugs, but it's other places that are really dealing with heroin.
Yeah, but like states like California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, even up into like Colorado and Utah, haven't been hit as hard as other areas of the country. So in terms of us, we don't. It's like we were saying about immigration. People in the north, they don't see it as much as down here we see it. Same thing with the opioid crisis. We don't see it down here as much as someone who lives in, West Virginia or Ohio or Pennsylvania would. So, it's about time that this has been declared a public emergency or a public health emergency because it is.
It is.
It definitely is.
If there was a disease that killed 60-something thousand people last year in 1 year, it would be a public health emergency.
It would be the top news story in every newspaper for the entire year. So it's good that this is going through, and I just feel like, declaring this is more of a symbolic gesture than anything else. And I hate to say that, but that's just the feeling that I'm getting for this. I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm very happy that he's finally got around to it, but I feel like there's still a lot more that could be done and needs to be done.
Yeah, we need to go after the source of this problem, which, a lot of it comes back to doctors. So doctors have been prescribing opioids 4 times the rate they did 15 years ago. And 80% of prescription painkillers are prescribed by 20% of prescribers. So it's a very small subset of doctors that are doing this right now, but they're going crazy with it. I mean, you look at what's happening, across the country. They're opening up all these different pain facilities and whatnot, and they're just selling these prescriptions like it's nothing. They're prescribing it for anything. I mean, there's so many different counties we've talked about on the show and in that episode in particular, which if you haven't listened to that one, it's only 30 minutes. It's a really solid episode we did on the opioid epidemic. There's places where there's only 1,000 people that live there, and there's like 1 million prescriptions for opioids. It's just come on, it's crazy. They're giving out it's nothing. And also, if you want to solve this problem, we also need to build a goddamn wall and enforce our border, because 80% of the heroin that comes into this country comes from Mexico. So, if we want to stop these problems, we should get to it soon.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, but, in going back to what you said earlier about what this declaration actually does, what it really, the most important parts of it is it cuts the regulatory red tape and gives states more flexibility in how they use federal funds to fight the problem, which has also been a big issue. Is, the federal government's been trying to help out, but there's just too much red tape. There's too many regulations and stuff like that. This pretty much just says, screw that stuff, just do it. Also, what it does is it allows changes to expand access to medical services in rural areas. And that's one of the big problems also is, people that live in rural areas, they'll get these prescriptions, but then once they develop drug habits, there's no really place for them to go. It's very hard for them to get care, or access to care to help them with their addictions. So this helps that, and I think we were saying this, I believe on one of the shows or at least we've used this analogy before, that whenever you do something like this, it still takes several months before you actually see the effects of it kick in. Yeah. So I'm glad this has happened. So, if 2 weeks from now the problem is still bad, don't go blaming the federal government and don't go blaming Trump that it hasn't solved anything, because it's not going to. It's going to take 6 months or a year before you see the repercussions of this stuff actually start to follow through. Yeah. So that's just what I want to say for that.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'm just hoping this declaration just brings awareness to someone who, was maybe maybe this isn't as bad as I think it is, and then they actually can see the numbers of what's happening. Hopefully that'll change someone's mind before they even begin to want to try some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I like when Trump was actually giving the speech in the White House about it. He brought up his older brother, Fred, who, if you don't remember, his older brother died of alcoholism. And he would always tell Trump, don't drink, don't drink. Trump's never done drugs, and he's never drinking, because his brother died from that, his older brother. So that, that's something that he himself does have personal experience with, is an addiction. And even though, it's alcohol addiction rather than, opioids, it's still an addiction. And it ended up killing his brother. So he understands personally just how bad these things can get and how it affects a family and how it affects people personally. So, yeah, I'm happy in general that this has come through.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to the next thing that we have?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so the next thing that we have here is that Trump is making good on some of his energy drilling promises, particularly in 2 places. The first, Alaska, and the second in the Gulf of Mexico. So the first place we want to look into is Alaska. What they're talking about in particular is drilling in something called the 1002 area. We're looking to begin drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is it was established in 1960, and it consisted of, at that time, 8.9 million acres, but currently it's at 19.3 million acres. So under Obama, they fought tooth and nail not to let us drill at all in this reserve. But the area that we're talking about that we want to open up, the 1002 area, is about 1.5 million acres that has around 10.4 billion barrels of oil believed to be there. So drilling would occur only on around 2,000 acres, representing just 0.01% acres total of the refuge. So in return for just drilling there, we're going to be opening up 10.4 billion acres.
10.4 billion barrels of oil, you mean?
Yeah, billions of barrels of oil, yeah. So, yeah, that's obviously good for the economy. What we've been seeing under President Trump, the country is finally becoming energy independent, which it should be. It should be, because we have the resources to do it. So, we're not being held back there at all with that. And they have polling amongst the locals there, and the majority of the locals there want it to happen.
Because it creates jobs. It helps their local economies.
Yeah. So, they're actually doing what they want to do, as opposed to being dictated by Democrats in Washington that's holding them back. So the other place that I want to talk about is also out of the Gulf Coast. The Trump administration has designated nearly 77 million acres of federal water. They put it up for lease now in the Gulf of Mexico. And this would amount to be the this amount of land they've allocated is the largest single offshore drilling initiative in American history. The size allotted to be leased up is approximately the size of New Mexico. So, there's going to be a lot more drilling out there in the Gulf Coast. So, stuff that I support, good stuff, good for the economy, and it's going to help gas prices continue to go down.
No, you see all these people telling you, Trump's not going, he's not sticking to his promises and whatnot, but, all the stuff that most people voted for him to do, he's doing. He is being tough on immigration. He's trying to have tax reform, and he's doing what he said with energy independence. We should be energy independent. We shouldn't have to rely on places in the Middle East and people that hate us to get oil from them. And, I'm sorry for all the lefties out there, but the earth doesn't run on solar. Not yet. We need to use our natural resources while we got them.
And at the same time, that also means continue to also look into, research on solar and do it. There's the comments Trump made that we're going to stick solar panels on the wall. And I'm like, hell yeah, go ahead and do it. Even if that only generates enough electricity to power the wall itself, that's that much less electricity, or that's that much less energy that needs to be used from fossil fuels.
Yeah, some of the biggest companies that are looking into alternative forms of energy are the big oil companies. Yeah. Because, they know oil's probably not going to be here, the way of the future. So they're doing plenty of research into solar and wind. It's just, as of now, wind and solar is not going to power the United States of America.
Exactly.
It doesn't run our battleships. It doesn't run our homes. Right now, we need this. We can use it. We don't have to rely on other people. We can become energy independent ourselves, lower our gas prices, create more jobs. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, very good stuff. And, just a small tidbit there that seems like it's just a nascent thing that, the news doesn't really talk about stuff that's that small, but that actually has a profound impact on all of us.
Greatly. Look at what happened when the Hurricane Harvey hit Texas.
Yeah.
Granted, that was the refineries, not the actual oil platform. The oil platforms were only shut down for a day. The refinery was shut down for a week.
Yeah.
Gas prices here in Texas went from about $2.05 to almost $2.50, and we had gas shortages because people started there wasn't actually gas shortage, as we know. It was just people freaking out and trying to buy it all at once. And, when it takes 3 days until you get more oil there, you're going to have a shortage for a while. You can see just how quickly things can change if you don't have a steady supply of gasoline and oil coming in. So, now you have a sudden boost in your supply because you're being able to drill in areas that the federal government previously said, no, you can't do it. And plus, nowadays we have horizontal drilling and stuff, so you don't actually have to build 1,000 new giant oil platforms out there. You only build one or two, and these horizontal drilling that goes underwater, you can start taking oil up from an area a mile from you without actually having to be over it.
Yeah.
So you can it's a lot more efficient, and also reduces the likelihood of oil spills too.
So we're getting better at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, some really good stuff there. I don't have anything else on it. Want to go into the last fun thing?
Unless you have anything to say.
No,
about
I'm
that.
ready to move on.
All right, let's get to it.
Yeah, this is probably, I'd say, the most fun thing that came out from the administration this week, and that is we had some little conspiracy theory, desires fulfilled with the release of some documents in regards to the JFK assassination.
Yes, so 2,800 records from the JFK assassination that were previously kept under lock and key have been released. And as you know, we talked about this last week on the show that they were going to do this, but that was before they'd actually done it.
Yeah.
It's in regards to 1992 that, Congress passed a law saying that, we're going to classify this information for 25 years, at which point we're going to unclassify it and release it to the public. Just so happens that it's been 25 years. The law did grant the president authority to just not do it. So a lot of, the CIA and other organizations wanted Trump to not do it. And they actually did that. Trump actually didn't release all of it. He only released like 2,800, it's like 10,000 total documents. Until yesterday, I believe, Trump actually tweeted out and said that every remaining document that wasn't released in the batch is going to be released as long as it doesn't have the name of someone who's still alive in it or their address. So in regards to that, there's going to be about 6,000 more documents that get released here within like the next day or two if they haven't already been released. I know once they did release it, people started just like, spending hours and hours and hours reading through every single thing. And that gets to some of the things that we are going to cover here about what was actually discovered in there. So one of the things we found out was there was an FBI memo from 1964 describing a meeting in which Cuban exiles tried to set a price for the head of Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, and Che Guevara. They said that they put a $100,000 bounty on his head. And these were exiles living in the United States that the FBI met with. That's one of the things that previously was not known. They also found out that a 1960 FBI memo described high-priced Hollywood call girls who were approached by Fred Otash, who was a well-known Los Angeles private investigator, seeking information about the sex parties involving then-Senator John F. Kennedy before he ran for president. Also, his brother-in-law, Peter Lawford, Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis Jr. So looks like, Mr. John F. Kennedy there had his high-priced Hollywood sex parties with all his buddies out there, like a little Harvey Weinstein type of situation. Maybe not that bad.
Weinstein-esque.
I mean, Kennedy wasn't known for being monogamous.
Of course not. So, that's not surprising. And, who cares at this point? Also, it says that an FBI file contained information about the Bureau's attempt to locate a stripper with the name of Kitty, whose last name is unknown. According to the file, another stripper named Candy Cane said that Kitty had been an associate of Jack Ruby, who was the Dallas owner of the nightclub. And Jack Ruby is the guy who shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald slightly after the Kennedy assassination. So, they said that Leon Kornman, who is a business agent with the American Guild of Variety Arts in New Orleans, told the FBI that the only stripper he knew by the name of Kitty who worked in New Orleans was Kitty Rayville. He advised that Rayville committed suicide in New Orleans in August or September of 1963. What a coincidence there.
Coincidences.
2 bullets in the back of the head, probably.
Probably. Also, they said that apparently a draft memo by the House Select Committee on Assassinations, because apparently that exists, found it unlikely that Cuba was behind the Kennedy assassination. So if you thought Cuba was behind it, the House Committee themselves said, yeah, we went through the information. We don't see how this would benefit them at all. Okay, that puts that to bed.
Fair enough.
Another thing, they said that on September 28, 1963, they actually phone tapped Lee Harvey Oswald because apparently, he was actually under, they were watching him because of his ties to the Soviet Union and stuff like that. But they said that the CIA's Mexico City translator noted that the North American, referring to Oswald, spoke terrible and hardly recognizable Russian. So, he could barely speak Russian at all. Not sure what that proves, but it's worth noting.
Yeah.
The FBI also warned the Dallas police of a committee organized to kill Oswald. A lot of help that helped. And finally, I think the last thing that I want to get to, and this is, we were joking about this today.
Yeah.
An internal FBI report from May 1964, an informant told the FBI that the Ku Klux Klan had documented proof that President Johnson was a former member of the Klan in Texas during the early stages of his political career. So, was LBJ in the KKK before he killed JFK?
Probably.
Wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
See, for those of you who don't know, President LBJ went to then, what was it called?
Southwestern
University, or It's today Texas State University,
This is
which
where
is
we
where
go to
we go.
school.
And our university holds him in very high regard.
Oh, yeah.
We've got buildings named after him. There's a road in town named after him. Did you know also in the city of San Marcos, at the intersection of LBJ and Martin Luther King, is the only place in the United States where an LBJ named street intersects with a Martin Luther King named street.
I didn't know
We
that.
have a plaque memorial thing there now that was installed last year. Worth noting if you've never been there. But we also, on campus, have our statue of LBJ.
Yep, I walk by it every day.
So the left wants to take down statues of these white supremacists.
Let's take down
Maybe we
LBJ.
should take down the LBJ statue and demand they take that statue down and demand that they rename the LBJ Student Center to something more inclusive of our diverse student population.
See, I'd be down with that. Like, I just don't like LBJ. So,
I
like,
think he was a bad president, personally.
take down a
I
statue.
mean, he
That's
gave
fine
us
with
hard
me.
seller, so.
I mean, if they want to get riled up around, using the KKK and then you take him down, like, I wouldn't fight back,
I mean, he was like known for being openly racist. Like, it wasn't even
Yeah,
a
I
secret.
mean, you can just type in his name and type in the N-word next to it, and you'll find dozens of quotes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
even the ones that aren't verified are very similar to the things that are verified.
Yeah.
But like you look at what he did under his presidency. Like he signed the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, which opened up our entire country. Removing nations of origin, what we had from 1924. We just opened it up to the entire third world. It's why we have this massive influx of immigration that is uncontrollable at this point. He had his Great Society, which got everyone on welfare and completely changed the incentive structures of how, like, the black community even functions in this country. So, like, yeah, he was one of our most, like, detrimental presidents that we've ever had. So, yeah, take down LBJ
But he waged
statue.
a war on poverty, though.
Yeah,
the
which
war on poverty that only created more poverty.
yeah.
Oh, you guys just hate poor people. That's what it is.
Oh, obviously, yeah. But yeah, so we've got some pretty good information that's come out with with these JFK documents. Nothing really.
I wanted to ask
Sorry
you
about
about these JFK documents, Bobby, because I know you know about them way better than I do.
Yes, I do.
And you know about the JFK stuff better than I do.
love
So
the
I've been hearing some things just on the internet. I want to see if, like, they're real at all. So I've heard that, like, people have found from these documents that the Soviet Union believed that LBJ was behind the JFK assassination.
Yes, after the and actually there's another thing that was coming up here that I actually wanted to mention too. But yeah, the Soviet Union conducted their own investigation into this to trying to figure out if it was any of their people who did it. They came to the conclusion that they believed that LBJ was behind the Kennedy assassination. I mean, me personally, I think LBJ was behind it. I mean, that's me personally. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail at a later time to tell you why I believe
Maybe
that.
we'll
That's
do
me
that.
personally. But the Soviet Union, even they said, yeah, we think it was probably LBJ behind it.
I've also seen things where people have talked about, like, the possibility of 2 shooters have been revealed from the documents or something.
That hasn't been proven. At least I haven't seen it. I probably would have seen it at the way that I looked that stuff up. However, going back to what I was saying, the Communist Party in the United States at the time was not very big, but it was still there. And they even had internal discussions amongst themselves saying, oh, crap, this might get blamed on us. We need to discuss whether or not, like, this is going to come back to us. So they actually conducted their own internal investigation to make sure it wasn't any of their people had, like, contact with Lee Harvey Oswald at the time.
Huh.
They said that apparently they, like, interviewed some other people, but, like, no one even knew the guy. In fact, the Communist Party of Dallas at the time had only 5 or 6 people.
Oh.
So, like, if anyone was going to be in contact with Lee Harvey Oswald, it would have been one of those 5 or 6 guys, and, like, none of them even knew who the guy was.
So, like, the last thing that I saw that I want kind of some confirmation on is, like, apparently in the documents it says that there's a thing where, like, they need to convince the public that the Oswald narrative on the JFK assassination is true. Was that a thing in there?
I'm not sure, but if you read, let's see, what was the report? Was it the Warren report? I believe was the one that was talking that started really all the conspiracy theories because, like, a lot of the information was contradictory and stuff was left out. I believe that was from that. That the government was like, okay, we have to go with this story. whether or not, all the information actually like proves it to be true.
Okay.
Now, that wasn't explicitly stated. I think what you're referring to is some of the internal documents that led up to the publishing of the Warren Report, like internal communications where they discuss that. I believe that's what you're talking about.
Okay. But yeah, we'll get more clear on these JFK documents, obviously, as the weeks go and people can look more into it.
And we're even thinking about doing a midweek on the JFK assassination.
I think it would be a good idea. Obviously, you know more about it than me, but I'll have to do a lot of research.
I think we should drive up to Dallas and do a live reading from Dealey Plaza and interview people on the streets, random. Say, hey, we're recording a podcast right now. What do you think?
That would be intense.
It would. So, but anyways, there's going to be a lot more information coming out as people start scanning these documents, and I have to give a lot of credit.
And more documents are to come.
Yes. I have to give a lot of credit to the people who stayed up all night clicking through hundreds and thousands of PDFs that were published on archives.gov. The links are there. Just look it up. Just type in JFK documents. It's like the first thing that comes up on Google.
Yeah.
You can look at that stuff for yourself. I'm actually surprised that all that stuff is even there. What was interesting, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but apparently one guy said that he met with Adolf Hitler in South America after
World War II. I
II.
remember seeing that thing.
And he says he even took a picture with him. And he says that apparently he was some CIA operative was had regular meetings with him. I don't believe it for a second, but hey, it's worth pointing out. I just wanted to bring that up because apparently that was with those documents too.
Yeah.
So it's okay, go for it, bro.
Some weird stuff. Let's move on to the economy now, though. We got some great numbers, and then some interesting numbers, I would say.
Right. So the very first thing that we have coming up is, as we kind of mentioned this earlier, GDP is expected to hit 3% for the third quarter. And if this happens, it will be the second quarter in a row that we've had 3% GDP growth. Obama had only one quarter, his entire presidency, where he reached 3%. He did not average it for an entire year. He was the only president who never averaged, at least for 1 year of his presidency, 3% GDP growth.
Which 3% GDP growth is what, everyone aims for.
Right. Now, they were only expecting it to be 2.5%. Now, if you remember, we talked about in the show a month or so ago that the Atlanta Federal Reserve expected the third quarter GDP growth to be 3.7%.
Yeah.
But then the hurricanes hit, and obviously that pushed everything back. And they've revised, I guess not really them, but other economists and stuff revised that down to about 2.5%. But it's now expected to reach 3%. Obviously the data hasn't been released yet. We'll find out probably later in November, when that data actually gets released. But it's expected at 3%. Now, Trump is probably not going to average 3% his first year. I'm just going to say it's probably not going to happen. It's going to be close.
Yeah.
Unless we have a really, really good fourth quarter, which if we get tax reform done and there's a lot of extra consumer spending, that might actually be the case. And I wouldn't be surprised. So it's going to be very, very close, and I'm looking forward to it. So I know there's a lot more we could talk about with this regarding GDP growth that I believe I've already said enough.
Yeah. But yeah, these numbers are good. We've actually done a lot better than we were predicted to do through the hurricanes, which, hurricanes, destruction, when you destroy things, you don't have wealth growth, as opposed to what some people believe, I guess, broken window fallacies. But, yeah, good stuff. And if we have tax reform go our way and all these different things, we should see next year, solid 3%.
And that's the thing is, a lot of people, of course, there were those people who were like, oh, if Trump wins, the economy is going to collapse. Mm-hmm. Well, that's obviously not happened. A lot of people were saying that, if the economy does take off too fast under Trump, he's going to be dealing with an inflation problem if it takes off too fast. Surprisingly, we haven't seen the rise in inflation. We've seen the GDP growth. It's essentially uncharted territory.
Yeah.
To have high GDP growth, but low inflation growth. It's okay, I don't understand how it's happened.
It's good.
But it's great. It's fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't touch anything. Yep. Just let it continue. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Last time.
Let's go into the second thing we have here on the economy, though, which were some interesting numbers from the Washington Examiner in regards to taxes.
Yeah, it's actually from the Office of Management and Budget. So this is the official government documents. The top 20%, we always talk about the 1%, the 1%, Bernie, the 1%. The top 20% pay 95% of all federal income taxes.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, you go on.
No, continue.
I was going to say, we were talking about the show last week when we were talking about like tax reform and how it would affect people. Mitt Romney, when he was running for president, referred to the 47% that don't pay any federal income taxes.
Yeah.
He got a lot of crap for that, but he was right. It was true. That's almost going to reach 50%. Okay? When they say like, the 1%, the 2% pay like half of all income taxes, that's also pretty much true. The top 20% pay 95% of all federal income taxes. And when your goal is the middle class, you're talking about like the top 30% to 5%. Like when you refer to the middle class, like that's really who you're referring to.
Yeah, like when I remember I was in high school when that video came out of the Mitt Romney and the 47%, and I was linked to some, I think it was like ABC News or something, and they were, I was seeing all the news articles like this horrible thing Romney did, and I was like, oh man, what'd he do? So I watched this video on ABC, I think it was ABC, and they showed the clip, and he was like, 47% of the population isn't paying federal income taxes, and then after the clip they just showed the news anchor like he looked like someone like he loved just died. Like he was just like blankly staring, just like shaking his head, looking down. And I'm sitting there like, what he said was true. Like,
yeah, where's the lie?
Like, what he said, like I've been saying this forever. Like what he said was 100% true. And like they act like this is such a horrible thing to say. And it's like, well, we can't have an honest discussion about tax reform and you talking about people paying more taxes if we can't have an honest conversation of who's paying the taxes.
Yeah, and I kind of also wanted to say, if the top 20% only pay 95% of the federal income taxes, yeah, granted there's half the country that doesn't pay income taxes. But even then, okay, 95%, that 5% of the rest is, it's divided amongst the people that are in like that top half, or the half of the country I should say that don't. So, if part of your tax reform plan is that like anyone making under like $50,000 or so doesn't have to pay any federal income taxes. In terms of the money you're actually collecting from the federal government, that's essentially not going to make any difference.
It's not much.
But to those people, it makes a lot of difference. So like, he said the priority is the middle class. And if you look at this data, the top 20%, a lot of the middle class is in that. I mean, my family is in the top 20%. You might think that's a bad thing if you're poor. Granted, I'm not going to say that's, I'm special or anything, but that's just how it works out. My family's in there. And we would see a lot of tax savings if this tax reform plan goes on. And I want it to happen.
Yeah.
And if you're a poor person, I don't think you should be paying federal income taxes. It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, if your priority is the middle class, get tax reform done. It's not going to hurt your earnings all that much, especially since we've been talking about how if you're removing a lot of the loopholes that, richer people tend to use in tax reform, it's not really loopholes. It's just like, other deductions that you're allowed to take. You're essentially, if you go with the White House's plan, mortgage, charitable deductions, and like one other thing was like the only deductions people would be allowed to take. The rich might actually see their taxes be risen.
They would. 100%,
a lot of them.
100% would.
A lot of them. So if you're a person who's like, but this is going to benefit the rich. No, it's not. If anything, the 1% are going to pay more taxes. So if you're you have to be a liberal to be on that side of the argument, just going to say it. So if you're a liberal and you actually understand that, you shouldn't be against this tax plan.
And just my thing is, what is really staggering about these numbers, which also plays in something that irks me, is just like the left always uses in regards to what we're trying to pass the tax reform right now is like, oh, it's just tax breaks for the rich. It's just tax breaks for the rich. The rich are the only people that pay any taxes.
Yeah.
Okay? Half the country doesn't pay any whatsoever. That's how bad parasitism has gotten in this country. They try to play them off that the 1% has taken something from you when you don't pay anything. You receive. You're a net receiver. You're not a net payer at all. And this stuff works. It works really well. Like we were talking about last week, they had that video where, they went on the college campuses and they talk about the Trump tax reform plan to, college students. But they claim that it's Bernie Sanders' platform or his plan. And they love it. And then they reveal afterwards it was Trump. And they're just dumbfounded. Because really, truly, they think that they're so smart. But they don't know anything about taxes or tax reform. But, all you need to know is that the 1% is ripping you off. And that works for, like, half the country, that rhetoric.
Yeah, you've created this, like, class warfare to where, like, the poor hate the rich, without...
It's the politics of resentment. They see someone that has something that they don't, so they feel like they should use the government to take something away from them so they can have it. I don't resent people being rich at all. I am a very poor individual. I know this stuff doesn't affect me. I don't care if rich people are getting tax cuts, okay? No, no one's getting a job. No one's getting hired by poor people, okay? You do need to, like, cut money from the wealthy so then they can actually come down, so someone can actually be hired.
Well, it's just all that Marxism of the only war is a class war. And, like, they don't see, like, I remember I watched, have you ever seen that movie, A Time to Kill? There's a scene where Samuel L. Jackson is talking about what it's like being a black man. And he says, when you see me, you don't see a man, you see a black man. And the left does something interesting when it comes to wealthy people. When they see a man, they don't see a man, they see a rich man.
Right.
So if something happens to them, it was a rich person. His car got keyed, that's fine, he's a rich person. They just look at it through those lenses of, if it happens to a rich person, who cares if their house gets destroyed in the hurricane? And it's funny because they don't understand, like you were saying earlier, rich people can write off everything.
Yeah.
If you put it down to just mortgages, charitable donations, and I don't know if they're doing
whatever
anything
the third. I know there's a third one. Whatever it was.
If they did that, it is 100% guaranteed their taxes would go up. It's not even up for debate.
Even if you reduce the rate.
Yeah, it would just 100% raise their taxes. And you know what? I think a lot of them would be fine with that because if you had a flat tax, people would be much better off just paying a flat tax, not have to worry about the hassle of writing all that stuff off, having to keep track of everything. Just go, all right, flat tax, 15 whatever percent, there you go. That would be so much easier, so much less stress. Who cares if they pay more taxes? So much less stress for everybody involved.
Exactly. So, the last thing I wanted to say was in regards to that number that we were saying, the top 20% pay 95%, that's a problem that's only getting worse. Because in 2015, the Wall Street Journal reported that the top 20% only paid 84% of all their federal income taxes. So, you're starting to see that number's going up. Yeah. And soon the top 20, it'll be the top 15% that's paying 90% of all income taxes.
Well, it's something like the 1% pays like 70% of taxes.
The top 1% pays...
It's over half.
The top 1% pays around half.
Yeah.
The top 2% pays around 60-65%.
Yeah.
Once you start getting, if you notice, if you look at see a chart of, earnings in this country, it's, extremely flat for, the first half. Mm-hmm. Then you start to see it go up a little bit until you get to about the top 3%. It just, boom, like a rocket just went off. So that's how you have this super large disparities to where you could easily say that, okay, if that number is 95% and say 65% is paid by the top 2%, so what's 95 minus 65? 30? You could say, 18% of this country pays 30, the top 18% minus that 2 only pays a third of all taxes. Whereas the top 2% on top of that pays 2/3 of all taxes.
And a lot of this disparity happened under Obama.
Yeah.
In fact, the vast majority of it happened under Barack Obama's presidency.
And a lot of it did have to do with the fact that there was the financial crash and stuff. And yeah, poor people got hit a lot harder than that, than rich people did. A lot of rich people did come out relatively unscathed. A lot of it had to do with the fact that if you look at just net worth of families, when rich people have all their money in their 401k and the market collapses, they pulled all that money out. They lost everything. Rich people, they were like, I'm just going to leave this money in. If anything, I'm going to put more in. And then the market double triples since then with quantitative easing and stuff like that. And all of a sudden their net worth triples because of that. So that's why you're right. You have this such high disparity simply because of factors like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Just the last thing for me is just I don't resent the rich. I am thankful for them, okay? Less than 1% of the people in the society can make the functions of the society actually run. It's a very select few people that can actually make the society run. And I think that they should be reimbursed for what they do for the rest of us. Because not every average Joe can do it.
Yeah, and friendly reminder, like, rich people are only rich because you buy their products.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like that Sony camera. Like, the executives at Sony are very wealthy because you guys bought a Sony camera. Or a lot of people, like, not because you bought, a $25 million camera, but because millions of people buy cameras that cost a few $100. Mm-hmm. Well, enough people do that, they become very wealthy. It's like, you see this all the time with Beyonce. Beyonce is extremely wealthy. Why? Because
she does stuff that people like.
Yeah, people buy her music. That's why. Like, that's it. Like, I don't resent that at all. She makes a product or service that people want to purchase. I don't know how people resent that. They just go, they have something I don't have, therefore I resent them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's go on to some immigration now, though.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
Okay, so immigration. We got actually some really good stuff. Also some very interesting studies that came out this week. But the first thing that we want to get into, which is some really good news that, we've been reporting on every single week since this started, is that the border wall prototypes that we've been working out in San Diego, they're done now.
Yep.
They're completely done. They're going into testing phases where they're going to see if, how well it can do against people trying to dig under it, dig into it, go over it. They're going to test that for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, literally going out these things with jackhammers and sledgehammers and stuff. It's really unfortunate. We build these wall prototypes only to destroy them.
Yeah.
It's going to be sad to watch, but that's the point.
I think they should make it like a reality TV show, right? Like, they should have like a bunch of illegal immigrants they've captured, get like 50 of them, right? Put them up against the wall prototypes. Make it to where if you can get through, you can stay. And like make this like a really cool reality TV show, dude. I would watch that so much. And that way we'd know like what works, what doesn't. But that would be hardcore, man.
That'd be intense. But we have 4 concrete barriers, and then we have 4 of other materials. And we're going to be testing these over the next couple weeks. Donald Trump gets final say on what will be used in the wall. But yeah, you can look it up right now, what these different prototypes look like. And, one of them or multiple of them will be used on the actual wall.
And like they said, different walls for different areas.
Yeah.
Whatever is necessary for that area. When you're in areas where, you're around, major cities, you might want the ones with the slits in there to where you can see what's going on the other side. If you're just in the middle of the desert, you might want the one that's just the solid wall itself. If you're in areas that are known to have high cartel activity, you might want to have the ones that are the thicker at the bottom because it's bomb-proof. Mm-hmm. So like I said, different walls for different areas. They're going to test these things out, make sure they actually work. And then once that happens, once they test those out, that's when they start real construction.
Which construction was always, which we've talked about for months in the show, it's been predicted around spring of 2018. So we're on time right where we are. There's nothing to worry about.
No.
The media tries to make it seem like Trump is not fulfilling on this. There's never been a moment during his presidency where he's not been focusing on this. He just doesn't want this to be the biggest thing out there because, people will go protest.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And a lot of people on the left, they're like, the wall's never going to get built. They try to gaslight us. But I'm like, okay, if the wall's never get built, why are we testing prototypes? Why do we have this timetable, this schedule of okay, for this month, for these 2 months, we're going to build and test these prototypes. And then we're going to start construction here. And then we're going to test out construction. Then we're going to do more construction in different areas. As much as I would like to see it, it's not going to be a complete giant freaking solid wall from one coast till the Gulf of Mexico. That's not what the thing is.
There's more nuance to it. I mean, you can look at the proposals that they've had. They most of them, they have it to where there's a primary wall, and then there's going to be about 150 feet to a secondary wall, which will probably be razor wire or something.
I was going to say, that's probably the secondary wall, quote unquote. It's more just a large fence.
Yeah, and what they put in between that area is sensors which show, which will sound the alarm for the patrol to come.
And road, too, for them to actually drive.
Road for them to get through there. It'll sound the alarm if they can even get over the first wall. So, they always try to make it out oh, the wall is not going to work. This is a very well thought out thing. And we've talked about different, walls that have been used across the world. We always like to talk about what they do out in Israel and what they do out in Hungary in particular. they have over 99% success rates with that. Okay, the wall that Israel has on the Sinai Peninsula, 100%.
In the last quarter.
Last quarter, 100% effectiveness. Not a single person got over it. So yeah, walls do work. Our wall is going to be built pretty soon, and we know what it looks like right now.
Yep.
No, like what you were saying when it comes to the walls, like they think like just some idiot's just going to put like a picket fence, and it's just going to, that's not going to work. Like, well, yeah, this isn't going to be a picket fence. Like the people designing this wall are going to design it to work very well. And you got to understand, like the left is in complete denial that Trump is even still president, much less the wall is going to be built. Like that's why you have all these, like I've had countless professors tell me, oh, Trump's not going to build the wall. The wall's not going to be built. And, every week that goes by, there's more and more progress being made. But the media will tell you, your professors will tell you, everyone will tell you, the wall's not going to be built. And it's like, yeah, it is. Like
it's under construction right now.
That was a crucial promise by Donald Trump. Like, if he does anything, this is going to happen
He's
before.
the wall guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I think he knows as well as everyone in his cabinet, if he doesn't get this wall built, or at least started, he ain't going to win a second term. That ain't going to happen. Like, he has to get this going, like at least get the ball rolling, because that was like a huge part of his campaign promises, if not the biggest.
It was the biggest.
Yeah.
So like currently the U.S.-Mexico border is what, like 1,000 miles or something?
It's like 17. No, it's like 3,600, I think.
Yeah, 3,600 miles. We currently have enough funding prior to this budget that we're about to pass for about 100 miles of wall. And actually, if you look at it, 100 miles in the right places would bring illegal immigration down a ton as it is. You don't need to have every single mile of the border protected.
And that's what Trump was even saying when he was running. Like, in his own words, he was saying we don't need to build a wall on every single square inch of the border. A lot of it is natural barriers, like mountains and stuff.
So we already have enough, money to build enough wall. We'll see a dramatic drop in illegal immigration. And if we only did that, that would be enough. But if we get this House, we just passed the budget in the House.
$10 billion.
We're going to get $10 billion to that. They predict the wall is going to cost like $25 billion.
So you got half of it already. And
yeah, we got
the cucky Congress that won't let you do anything.
We got most of the money to build the wall, and like $20 million from our budget is nothing.
Yeah,
I really don't care if Mexico pays for this wall or not. The money that we're going to be saving by them not even coming here is worth it, and it'll pay for the wall in a single year.
Especially as you get more and more immigration legislation passed. Like if we can get the RAISE Act or something very close to it passed. Like I said, illegal immigration costs the United States like over $100 billion a year.
Yeah.
So, if it only costs you $30 billion to build a wall and you can start reducing the flow of people across and then start kicking the people out that are already here or get them off of programs that they're on that are giving them money, you're going to save a lot of money.
Yeah.
And in the long run, and not even the long run, like 2 or 3 years. That's like short run in the life of a government. In the life of a presidency, that's very, very short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to save a lot of money, and I don't even care if Mexico pays for it.
Yeah, and another thing you can do is start taxing the money they're sending back over to Mexico.
Remittances.
Remittance is like one of the biggest things that brings money into Mexico.
It is. Yeah, they get
I think it surpassed oil like the last time I checked. I mean, it's
remittances is a sixth of the Mexican economy.
Yeah. And we don't do anything about it. They can just go and do it. Mm-hmm. You want Mexico to pay for the wall? The wall's paid for in a few years just by taxing that at a small amount.
Yeah, we said we've seen studies that show if you just put a 2% tax on remittances, you can completely pay for 100% of the wall within 5 years.
I mean, when they said $25 billion, I was like, that's all it's going to cost?
Nothing.
Yeah, no, I thought they were going to say minimum like $100 billion, and even then I would have been like 100% worth it. Let's do it. But like $25 billion? Are you joking? Like, that's nothing for this border wall. And the amount of money it's going to save us over the long run, I just don't understand. Like, these people, like, it's all just about, you hate minorities, therefore don't build the wall.
Yeah.
The real thing about it is the Democrats, they need to import voters at this point. Mm-hmm. I mean, people, they say immigrants, illegal aliens do the jobs Americans don't want to do. Yeah, it's voting Democrat at this point. They are seeing that they're failing to appeal to the average American with how crazy they're getting, so they need to bring in people that will be dependent on them. And if we can close off this avenue for them, they're going to really struggle to have a voter base in the future. And that's why it's so important to gaslight us. That's why it's so important to fight wall funding and all this stuff, because they know if the wall is built, it will be a burden to their electoral future for decades to come, because it's going to stay there even after Trump's gone.
Yeah, and like another thing too is like the left is always like they always try to hide their true intentions. Like if they would just be honest and say, we like illegal immigrants because they tend to vote Democrat and want our social programs, I wish they would just say it. Like just go out there and say it. Like because if someone said, you know, I don't want illegal immigrants because they tend to vote Democrat. Like if I said that, like I'm telling the truth. Like we don't want people coming to this country that are going to vote against my interest and my family's interest. That's like someone
It's
like me would say that.
existential.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would openly say that. The left will never come out and say, no, we really just want you because you're going to vote for us in our social programs. Like they always try to hide their true intent. And if I say, you know, I would rather not have illegal immigration because they vote against my interest, I'm branded as a racist or something. But it's just fine for them to say, or for them to have the intentions of bringing them in to vote for them.
Which, like, there's Pew Research pulling on this. Like, for Hispanic immigrants, 8 to 2, they prefer bigger government. And 3 decades down the line, it's still 7 to 3. So, you know, the people coming south of the border are the biggest proponents of big government. So, you know, I don't feel the need to enslave myself to their desires to come over here, because it's going to affect me at the end of the day, especially someone that lives in Texas.
I completely agree.
Let's get into the next story that we have here, though, and that is some information out of the Census Bureau in regards to people not speaking English at home, since we're talking about immigration.
Yeah, and this kind of goes to show just how much immigration has affected our country already. So the Census Bureau has released information stating that California, 44.6% of people do not speak English at home.
Don't.
And it actually goes to list every single state. So if you look up Texas, which is the second highest state on there, 35.6% of people do not speak English at home. Next up is New Mexico, 34.5%. And Arizona is 8th on the list with 27.1%. So, yeah.
Really staggering stuff.
Especially the California, 44.6%. That's almost half of California households don't speak English at home. Now, if you're wondering what that's like for the United States as a whole, it's 21.6. So that means that 1 in 5 people in the United States, when they go home, they're not speaking English to their families.
1 in 5 people in this country is a foreigner, also a non-citizen.
I think those numbers might have something to do with each other.
Yeah.
Does it say what language they speak, or they just don't speak English?
It just says
at
they
home?
don't speak English. That
We
English
can
is
assume that it's mainly Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, these are border states, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally described as other than English was
Yeah.
what was used in that. So, yeah, I mean, I was going to say, could we get into the whole topic about, like, assimilation? I
Yeah.
think that's the point that we're going to end up getting into here.
Well, my thing is just, like, it's important that they speak English because the Constitution's in English, okay? If they're supposed to be coming here because they want to become Americans, which, I mean, I can show you some studies where they don't actually believe that, like, they should at least be speaking English, okay? If they're supposed to fit into our society speaks English. Okay, but they're showing that they're so insular that they don't even want to do that, to the point to where, you know, they'll fight back if you even try and tell them that they should start learning English.
And not only that, it's not that even the ones that do speak English, that same survey showed that 18.6% of people 5 years of age or older in California spoke English, quote, less than very well. It's like broken English. They don't really speak it very well.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you some of that is overlapped with the people that don't speak English at home. Some of that's probably not.
Which, like, okay, so I, do some teaching, and I was in a classroom on Friday, and it was a immersion classroom. So, that speaks both English and Spanish in the classroom. But, I mean, we're in Texas, and there's multiple students in there that have limited English skills. Like, they only really know Spanish. And it's crazy. Like, what country is this? I don't comprehend it. It's something else.
I mean, I know people that have been here for literally 20 years that still cannot speak to me in English. Yeah. And it's just like, I would, if I was in another country for like 6 months, I would have be able to do basic conversations with somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't fathom how you can come to another country where, like you said, everything, like, we don't have a national, an official language, but, like, our rule of law is in English. Like, all of our speeches done by our leaders are in English. Our road signs are in English. Like, everything around you is in English. Why is it so bad for us to say, learn English? It shouldn't be a taboo thing to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally believe that when you go to vote, all ballots should be printed in English only.
100%.
Even if you're in the border, like, English only. I do believe that.
I mean, why wouldn't they be? Like,
yeah.
That's mind-boggling why they wouldn't be.
And, we were talking about a story in the show, I think it was last week, there was a woman in California who was living in the United States for over 20 years, finally got citizenship, doesn't speak any English at all.
Yeah.
And been living in the country for 20 years. Like, what the hell are you doing here if you can't speak our language at all?
Well, exactly. Like, what are you doing here? Like, people used to come to the United States because it was the last place you could go to where you had the freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, your states had sovereign rights. Like, this was the place you went to just really have all the freedoms you wanted. Now it's the place you go to because your kid's going to get free school, your kid's going to get free food at that school, your kid's going to get free health care. You can do whatever the hell you want for free. And, it's all paid for by the whoever else, someone you've never seen. You're never going to see that person, but they're going to pay for you. Mm-hmm. And you can just live in your little community of people that speak your language, never have to learn English, because why would you do that? There's nothing about them that wants to be American as far as an ideological American. Like, people say, like, there's a difference between an American and an American citizen.
Right.
Anyone can be an American citizen. You're born here, you can be an American citizen. Kudos. If you're anti-free speech, if you're anti-Second Amendment, like, I'm sorry, but you're un-American. Like, that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, you don't hold the ideals that America was founded upon. That's what America was founded upon, period, end of story. There's nothing wrong with being anti-American. There's nothing wrong with not subscribing to those beliefs. But that's what America was. That's what it was meant to be. When you are just coming to this place because it happens to be the best place, like, we got hot women, good food, like,
we've turned our country into an economic zone rather than a country.
Yeah,
because it's so great. Like, I mean, I don't blame them for wanting to come here, but don't turn it into
it's becoming like an international shopping mall.
Yeah, and like we're guilted into bringing people in here because look how well we've done. We have to bring these people they have horrible situations they're coming from. No one asks, why is it so crappy in Mexico? Like, no one asks, like, why are all these countries these people are coming from such a disaster? Like, why don't they fix that before they come to ours? And all they do is they come to our countries, and they just do all the same things they did in their countries. If they want to come here, if you want to come to America, if you want to be, the best pro-free speech Second Amendment dude, by all means, come over. That's cool. We could always use more people that subscribe to the American ideology of the individual and the individual's rights.
But if you can't even read the Constitution, you're not going to be that person.
You're coming over here because there's going to be free stuff, and everything is going to be peachy keen compared to what it was like in Mexico, working for a few dollars a day.
And that's why it's so important that we get the RAISE Act passed, because one of the concepts of the RAISE Act is in order to immigrate to the United States, you have to speak fluent English.
That's not even asking that much.
You also, that part of it, it also limits the amount of immigration, too. It cuts it down by, like, half. It also, imposes the thing that, like, you can only come here, you can't chain migrate. You cannot have any chain migration, which is extremely important.
That's one of the biggest problems.
That's the reason why these numbers are so high here. Also in there, it's that, like, the job that you have has to pay, like, at least more, like more than the average, or, like, a significantly higher level than the average job in that field. Mm-hmm. It's like you're only bringing in, like, high-skilled English-speaking people. It's essentially, we've said, like, half of all Americans wouldn't even fit into that to be.
Yeah, I've done the test where, like, would you qualify to come to the United States under the RAISE Act? And I wouldn't. But it's just like, why do we not want our immigration policy to benefit us? Why are we the only country where it's, like, taboo to have immigration that benefits your own country?
That's what it's supposed to do.
Our immigration policy only benefits people that come here.
They're like, it's discriminatory. Yeah, that's the point. That's the point of immigration policy, is to only let in people that you want to let in. That is the definition of discrimination, and that is a good thing.
No, yeah, the idea that discrimination is a bad thing is crazy. I mean, you discriminate all the times. Or all the time. The only way that you show value with something is through discrimination. Okay, the best example is love. You don't love everyone. You discriminate with how you give your love out. That's what gives it value, by having rarity to it. We do this with everything, but the left tried to turn the term discrimination into this horrible, hateful thing, when all we're saying is, hey, let's have immigration that makes our country better. Not just off this narrative that they're the best, they're better than you, and all this stuff.
And that's one of the things I hate the most. Not the thing I hate the most, but one of the things I hate the most is that, the left does run with that narrative that, these immigrants, these poor people that don't speak English are better than you are.
They're more American than you.
They're more American because they got to choose to come here.
Well, they treat them better.
American. They do treat
them better than vets. You don't see a bunch of veterans that are trying to get health care from the VA sitting on the front row of the DNC, but they'll put illegal immigrants in there. I don't know how they get there. The non-citizen in this country is treated better than the citizen. You just got to ask your lefty friends, what does the U.S. citizen have that the non-citizen doesn't? What is the benefit of being a citizen to a non-citizen? What's the difference? What benefit do I have being a U.S. citizen? Because I don't get all the benefits those guys do. I didn't get free lunch at school. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
But they get it. What is the benefit of me even being a citizen at this point? They don't like me. I don't vote for all the policies of the bigger government and more enforcement of that. They treat the non-citizen better than they do the citizen. So at that point, what's the benefit of being a citizen?
And I was going to say, they talk about Russia being a foreign influence in our elections. Talk about Mexico.
Yep.
You've got millions of people that are here illegally that are allowed to go out there and protest on their own behalf to try to influence American politics.
At our Capitol building, 30 miles up the road. They do it all the time.
You can't do that in any other country.
If anyone listening to this needs to read the Mexican Constitution, you want to talk about a racist nationalist document, oh my God, read the Mexican Constitution. If you go overseas, if you go over to Mexico, you cannot protest the Mexican government if you are not a citizen, period. You're in jail. At any time, the president of Mexico, for whatever reason, literally he doesn't like the look of you, at any time the president of Mexico can throw you out of the country. Mm-hmm. Non-citizens can't serve in the police force. They can't serve in the military. They can't even buy certain property that is designated just for Mexican citizens. If you are a non-citizen in Mexico, you are a second-class citizen, period, end of story. You know why? Because Mexico only wants people going over to their country that are going to benefit the country. Mm-hmm. Only the U.S. can have immigration to where it has to benefit the immigrant, not the country. That's not how immigration works. You come to our team, to our country, to benefit our country. Otherwise, why would we bring you in here? There's no point. But they look at immigration as, we owe it to them because look how fortunate we are. We have to let these people who screwed up their own places.
It's not even at this point, look how fortunate we are. It's look how evil we are.
Yeah.
These people are more virtuous than
we're
us.
Fortunate because we're evil. Because look what we took from the sad little people that need to come here now.
It's insane. But there is some good news regarding that. That's the next story that we have up too.
Let's get into this next one. So, a top border official said this week that illegal immigration is at a 45-year low. Kevin K. McAllen, and am I saying that right? Kevin K. McAllen.
I believe you're saying that correct. Yes.
Yeah, who is acting commissioner of the U.S. Customs Border Patrol, said on Tuesday that, as I just said, illegal immigration is at a 45-year low, and he expects this to even, go down more so as the years go along in the Trump administration.
Yeah, we've already seen a decline of 60 to 70% illegal border crossings so far, and that's even without the wall being built. That's just with having someone who's, tough on immigration. Why would you come to this country if you have someone who's, at the head of the table, pretty much, talking out against you at every step of the road? They're not going to want to come here, and a lot of people have thought twice about coming here. So, you get the wall built, that number is going to drop even lower.
No, this is the power of a strong leader. All it took was just you replace someone like Barack Obama with someone like Donald Trump. That's all it took, is you take someone that can say, we're going to stop this. If you come here, you're going back. That's all it takes. And that's all we were saying forever. Like, we finally have a leader that is actually wanting to protect the border, and all of a sudden, just telling them you're going to go back if you get caught here, that's stopping people. That's powerful.
And fear works.
Works really well.
Like, we're supposed to feel bad that we don't want people committing crimes to come in here. Like, no, you should fear this. And for the first time in a long time, they do fear coming here.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And they do fear even when they get here that they're going to go back. Because guess what? We're cracking down on the stuff real hard, real bad right now. So, yeah, don't stick around, dude. So, yeah, some really good stuff there. Want me to go into the next thing, Bobby?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, another thing that is good that happened this week as far as immigration is the Trump administration is tightening H-1B visa guidelines. These are the foreign worker visas that we give to, so they can come here. They allow you to work here for 6 years. So what they're doing this week is they have a new guideline. They're going to vet every single foreign worker currently here as if it was them processing for a first-time applicant. So, there's a lot of fraud that is in our visa programs, and, it's displacing American workers. So, as of this week, as of the new memo that we announced this week, we're going to go through and check everyone to see if they should be here or not. And, a lot of these companies, they cheat how they do their visas. They're supposed to check if there is availability in the American workforce to fill these jobs, but usually they don't. They usually get these things like candy, especially under Barack Obama they were. And, what we saw this year, we also saw, Jeff Sessions' Justice Department is actually suing some of these companies in violations of American workers' civil rights. So we actually have an administration that fights for the American worker for once. So it's really great stuff.
It's fantastic. And, the thing that I was going to say regarding this is, the left likes to say that, what's the point of building a wall? Most of the people here illegally have visa overstays. Being like, yeah,
we're working on that too.
Because we haven't cared about this program before, and the problem is we track these people when they come in. We don't track them when they go out. Mm-hmm. We don't follow up on them to make sure that they've already left, and that's also part of what this is doing. It's making sure the ones who are on those programs should be on those programs, or if they shouldn't, they're gone. And make sure that, they actually leave once they're supposed to be gone. So, yeah. Yeah,
and like you said, they bring up the point, like, they're already here, the visa overstays, and they act like we can't do anything about that. No, we can deport them. Like, if they're overstaying illegally, we can also just deport them. Like, it's not like we can, the minute, like, if we build the wall, that's because, the minute you make it in the U.S., you're safe. Like, no, we still have the power to deport you out of the country if you're here illegally. Doesn't matter if you came in you came in first legally and then overstayed and made yourself illegal. You still get deported.
This isn't even just a matter of though they're overstaying their H-1B visa. We can also, because we're looking over everyone that currently has one, maybe they're in a field where, maybe an American worker can fill this role and the company didn't do what they were supposed to do and hired you because you cost a lot less. Mm-hmm. We'll be sending you home, and we'll be sending your employer a fine. And we've been seeing this already happen under the Trump administration.
And also keep in mind, if employers or businesses are fined by the federal government for violating certain laws, they can't write that off of their taxes either.
No.
So that might actually offset reducing corporate tax rate with all the fines that are about to go onto these companies too.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, if you're doing the right stuff, I want you to, get a break. If you're not, we're gonna break your back. So, let's go into the next thing here that we have here for immigration. That's also interesting. There is a study out of the University of California, San Diego this week that reveals that nearly 44% of the almost 800,000 illegal aliens who have been protected under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA, previously worked in the U.S. without valid Social Security numbers. The study, according to the Center of Immigration Studies researcher Ronald Mortensen, sheds light on the potential identity theft rates of DACA recipients. Quote, however, these individuals were unable to legally obtain Social Security numbers for their pre-DACA employment, which means that they used fraudulently obtained Social Security numbers that all too often belong to American citizens, including American children. The The use of unlawfully obtained Social Security numbers by individuals eligible for DACA status is so pervasive that the Obama administration instructed applicants not to disclose their illegally obtained numbers. That ensured that Americans who are the victims of DACA identity theft were left with destroyed credits, arrest records attached to their names, unpaid tax liabilities, and corrupted medical records, while the DACA recipients walked away scot-free from multiple felonies, forgery, Social Security fraud, perjury on I-9 forms, and identity theft. So, they try to sell us that these DACA recipients are so great. They're so much better than you. They're so much smarter than you. They work harder than you and all these things. All the while, 44% of them, before they were receiving DACA, were working on stolen Social Securities. So they're, they always like to say, like, oh, they're not criminals. They have to go through criminal checks.
44% are criminals.
44% of them.
I mean, that's a pretty serious crime, too. Like, having a fake Social Security number it's not just like, you took a candy bar from the gas station. Like,
yeah.
That's pretty insane.
It's identity theft. That's fraud. Like, you take, like, that didn't have anything to do with what I was going to say. But anyways, yeah, like, we keep saying on the show, they all need to go back. All 800,000 of these people need to go back. This just goes to prove it. Yeah. And that's a study, who knows how many of them, we're using, let's say that 44% number is incorrect. It could be higher, it could be lower.
Yeah.
But that still gives us a good range of, like, how pervasive that problem actually is.
Even if it was significantly lower, it'd still be a massive problem. If 15% of these people had sort of identity fraud of stealing someone's Social Security number, that's still a problem. We always portray them as, like, they're the doctors and lawyers. Like that's who you're discriminating against. Is these DACA people? Like they're just wanting to really just get ahead in life. That they're really studying. Like
even though on average they have lower education than the rest of the United States.
I know, but we're told that these guys, if it wasn't for DACA, if it wasn't for these 800,000 people, like the United States would just collapse. Like we will not have the future engineers and like the United States it can't go on without these 800,000 people. And no, in reality, we can just send them all back.
And also in regards to DACA, this is a story that we reported, I think, a month ago. Also have a quote here on that from that story.
Yeah.
There is a former official for the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services named Matt O'Brien. He did an interview with Live Zet, and he said, quote, "Based on what I've seen and what I discussed with my colleagues, the fraud rate in regards to DACA is 40 to 50%. It's possibly that it is possible that it is even higher. You look at what was happening with DACA in the last 3 months of the Obama administration, they added on 122,000 DACA recipients. And, looking at how the acceptance rates for how the applications are going, they had in that last 3 month period, an acceptance rate of 98%.
Oh.
So the Obama administration, in fear of Trump coming into power, just let anyone come in. And, they're undocumented citizens, as they like to call them, or whatever. So we don't have documents. We don't know if they're eligible for DACA. Did they come in when they're under 18? There's no way to know. We don't even know how truly old they are. They can lie about this stuff. And as he said, the fraud rate for DACA, around 40 or 50%. And then the people that were on DACA were also stealing Social Security numbers, a lot of them, about half. So yeah, these are really shitty people, and I don't want them here.
And there's a solution to solve all this. You send them all back.
And they need to go back. Every last one of those 800,000 needs to go back.
It's funny because the left, they're always just like, don't you care? Like, don't you have a heart? And it's like, no, I just don't care. Like, what you did was illegal.
Don't you have a heart for American citizens whose Social Security numbers are being stolen?
No, you don't.
If it's a choice between an American citizen and someone illegally, even if you've been part of DACA, like, you've benefited being here. Like, even if you were here, like, just 4 years, you had a great 4-year run, buddy boy. It's now time for you to go back. If it's between you and an American citizen, I'm siding with the American citizen all day long. It's their country. Get out. Yes. You can come back a legal way. I don't care if it takes you a long time. And guys, I got news for all these people that are talking about wanting to come here. If you actually are going to be valuable to the country you're going to, you'll be accepted a lot faster than, 10 years. Like, if you actually speak the language, if you're actually in a field like that is going to be in demand in that country, heck, even if you're planning to join the military, they can fast track you into being a U.S. citizen. The fact that you guys are taking all this time to become a U.S. citizen is because you really have nothing to offer the United States, which is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go into the last thing that we have for immigration. Then we'll get into some election stuff, which we have a lot of election stuff to get into as well. So the last thing that I want to talk about for immigration this week is the travel ban has expired as of this week. So we are going to be readmitting refugees from all the different countries that are on the travel ban. So currently, since it's over, we're going to be resuming refugee admittance with new, stricter screening rules for nationals of 11 different countries believed to pose higher risks to the U.S. national security currently. And those 11 nations are not disclosed as of this moment because I guess they don't want them to know. So, yeah, the travel ban's over. It's fun while it lasted. But, I don't know. We've improved a lot of this screening stuff, and we're going to be looking harder into it. And refugee admittance is down a ton, so I don't know. I'm okay with stuff.
Yeah, they said even with the travel ban, refugee admittance was down like 80-something% or something like that. So,
yeah.
And the ones who were being let in were some people might not like this, some people will. They said a majority of them were actually Christian rather than Muslim from those areas. So it's not that we've been prioritizing them, but that's just the type that we're let in. So even then, with these stricter rules, it's essentially still going to have it in place.
Yeah.
That was the point of getting these stricter rules in, is so you can make sure that you don't let the wrong people in. So even though now we're letting people in, we're still making sure they're the right people.
Yeah, and there's a big backlog of these people that will take years to even get through, and if we're putting longer time, frames for them to be vetted, we're not going to let in a lot of them. So I'm good with it. I mean, we're projected to take in less than 50,000 this year or something.
Well, Trump's goal was to get around 50,000, and we'd only taken in or at least we were on track to only get in 45 or something like that. So
it's down.
That might
he
change.
Ran on that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, as much as I would like to see us take in 0 refugees,
which John Kelly agrees with you,
that was not Trump's prior. That was not what Trump ran on.
Yeah.
He ran on 50,000 a year, cut it in half.
So good stuff.
Yeah, I get it. It's a compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got this stuff in place. The Supreme Court had dropped the case against the travel ban anyway, so we won there. With that,
but we still have the precedent. If we ever need to or want to, we can do another trial ban, just executive order, once again. So it's good that we haven't lost in the courts with that. And like you said, we very well might do that.
I'm fairly certain that there probably will be another travel ban on some other countries inside the Trump presidency. Like you said, precedent is set. It's going to happen again, and there's nothing the left's going to be able to do about it.
Yeah. Let's get into some election stuff now. So the first story that we have this week as far as the 2018 elections that is really, really good news. Really made me happy when I saw this. Jeff Flake, the senator out of Arizona, is not seeking re-election.
Thank God. I mean, he was only down by 30 points in the polls? He was never going to get re-elected anyways.
Yeah.
He was never going to win that primary. So, he saw the light. He saw the writing on the wall there.
Kelly Ward is the presumptive Republican
and
now.
All the other Republican nominees, they understood that she was kind of running away with this thing already. So
yeah.
I doubt that they're gonna come back at this point.
Which she's pretty good out there. Jeff Flake gave a little speech this week about how it's tough doing politics in the Trump era. He doesn't really like the tone of how things are going, and I don't really like the tone of how he does politics. So I mean, take a break, dude. You don't have to be in the government. It's fine. We got other people.
Problem is, he's gonna be here until January of 2019.
Yeah, that's the problem.
We have a whole year plus 2 or 3 months with him. That's the problem with these guys. And he's going to use every last minute of it to try to derail the Trump agenda.
Yes.
Same thing with John McCain until his cancer kills him. Same thing with Lindsey Graham. Same thing with all these guys. Same thing with Luther Strange. He's going to be out of here next January, but still.
Yeah. So, some good stuff out of there. The next thing that we have is Orin Hatch has been talking to some of his friends, and he's looking to retire now.
Orin Hatch is the Republican senator from Utah, if you didn't know that already.
Yeah.
Not exactly a Trump fan.
Orin Hatch was a part of the Gang of Eight bill, so it's good that he's going, but I don't know, we're getting Mitt Romney probably is the guy that's going to replace
Mitt
him.
Romney has said that he'd like to run if Orin Hatch retires. God, the last thing we need is Mitt Romney to be a senator. It's, what's the point in even having Orin Hatch retire if Romney replaces him? It's the same person, essentially. That wouldn't be good. Unfortunately, Romney would probably
He would
win
easily win Utah.
He'd win that. Orin Hatch, if you didn't know, is the longest-serving Republican senator in Washington. He's 83 years old. Even longer than John McCain, and John McCain's been here since the Stone Ages anyways, so yeah. Polls did show that a large majority of Utah people did want Orin Hatch to retire, so maybe he's seeing the writing on the wall too. But yeah, I just don't want it to be Romney, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't want that at all.
Him and Trump were cool for a while, but then
when he wanted the State Department
exactly.
job.
That's what I was saying. He was cool, but then it looked like they were really getting together, and then all of a sudden Trump was like, you're not getting the position you wanted.
Yeah, Trump used that just to piss off.
So I don't know if he were to make it in. I don't know if he'd be very.
He's one of the worst people during the primaries, Romney.
Yeah. Now Steve Bannon is saying that he's obviously planning to support a candidate in the Utah primary. He's already met with one guy named Boyd Matheson, who's the head of a conservative think tank.
Doesn't ring a bell for me.
Yeah.
Romney's probably still going to win. Like in Utah.
Unfortunately, Romney probably will win that.
And he's got the money.
That's what the biggest deal is.
It's Utah. He's Mormon. McMullen won Utah.
Yeah, Evan McMullen.
Utah stick with Utahns.
He got more votes than Clinton did in that state.
So, want to go to the next one?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
We got a poll out of Alabama from Strategy Research. They did a phone poll of 3,000 people out there. And currently, Roy Moore is up 11 points over Doug Jones there in Alabama. So, they've been trying to really gaslight hard with some really crazy polls that we've talked about on the show.
Yeah, we talked about last week on the show. Fox News released a poll showing that it was tied, which was complete bullshit, because if you looked at the internals of that thing, it was like extremely oversampling Democrats. It only had Trump's approval rating in Alabama at like 40%, which is a joke. It's the low 60s at the lowest in that state. So, this poll has him up by 11, which is a lot more accurate. Even though that's like a extremely Republican state, special elections do tend to be
I understand the narrative of what they're trying to do with these polls. They're trying to show that if you want to primary these GOP guys, you're going to lose in the midterm. But it's not going to happen. And it never was going to happen. We shouldn't be afraid to get rid of shitty Republicans. They're the ones that are keeping us from doing anything in the Congress to begin with.
They're worse than the Democrats right now.
They're our only opponents. The only thing that's keeping us from actually fulfilling Trump's agenda is ourselves. Or should I say just the establishment. So.
The establishment wing of the GOPE, as they like to refer to them as.
Yeah. Want to go to the next poll we got?
Yeah.
So the next poll we got is Danny Tarkanian out in Nevada. He is currently ahead of Dean Heller 6 points in polling.
Yes. Now, Dean Heller is the current Republican senator from Nevada. Again, GOP establishment, not a Trump guy. Danny Tarkanian, a Las Vegas businessman, more of a Trump guy. I haven't done all my research on him, but from what I've read, he's
better.
Good. He's better. And that's, if the best you can get is better, then I'll take better.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they said that Tarkanian holds a 59% favorability rating among Nevadans and only a 24% unfavorable rating, whereas Dean Heller has a 51% favorable rating and a 43% unfavorable rating. And that's a nonpartisan favorability rating. I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about just people in
That's
Nevada.
pretty good.
60% of people in Nevada approve of Danny Tarkanian.
And that's
So
a very
if you-
purple state.
Yeah, and so if that's a purple state with a Republican with a 60% approval rating, that's higher than most Republicans in their own states. Okay, I have full confidence he's probably gonna win that election if he beats Dean Heller,
Which I forget who the Democrat challenger is there.
some guy.
But yeah, it's going to be a bit harder to beat the Democrat in Nevada, so we do need the better candidate, and that's Tarkanian, just looking at these favorability numbers. So some more good polling stuff there.
I was going to say also, if you can get Danny Tarkanian in, he's a Las Vegas businessman, okay? You look at a electoral map of Nevada, the only area there that goes blue is like the county by Reno and Clark County down there in Las Vegas. So if you can get a prominent Las Vegas businessman who's known in the city to be your senator, and then Trump runs for re-election in 2020, guess who's going to be at his rally? The guy who's liked by the people in the state.
Yeah.
That increases Trump's chances of winning Nevada in 2020.
Yeah, the opponent in Nevada likely for the Democrats is Representative Jackie Rosen,
Uh-huh.
which I don't know too much about.
I don't like...
I mean, he's in our database. I could look it up, but
Yeah, well,
it's whatever.
we'll not do that right now, but... excuse me. So the next poll that we have is out of Virginia, where, if you didn't know, there is a gubernatorial election. I said that wrong. There's an election for governor this year, because Virginia is one of those states that has governor elections in, like, off years. And theirs is this year, here, 2017. And Ed Gillespie is the Republican nominee.
Hey, Gillespie.
I'm sorry, did I say that wrong?
Yeah.
Gillespie. Gillette Fusion. Anyways, Ed Gillespie, he is the Republican candidate, and he currently has a 2-point lead in polls over the Democrat nominee, who is Ralph Northam, in the Virginia governor race. Now, Virginia is a state that went to Clinton. And in my election models, I always had to go into Clinton, especially after she picked Tim Kaine to be her nominee.
Yeah, helped him out.
And obviously, Virginia's the type of state that's not even, like, I don't even consider it a swing state anymore. I just consider it to be a blue state. But, recent polling has showed that, like, Gillespie is actually doing pretty well. And this is across the board, different types of polls. Left-wing and right-wing polls have shown that it's either tied or anything with him up to 8. So if he can win that might throw Virginia back into the swing state category for 2020, especially if he can get some good stuff done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I choose to believe Virginia isn't as cucked as it tends to vote. I mean, this was Robert E. Lee's state, a little over 100 years ago, and now it's voting, blue. I don't know. I think there's a lot more Republican-leaning people, especially Trump-leaning people in that state, than are led on to believe. And I think maybe if the economy keeps growing the way it's growing under Trump, I think that could, if you get a solid governor like that, or if you get a Republican governor and the economy keeps growing, I think we got a solid chance of that place, at least becoming a swing state.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the other polls, there was a poll out of Monmouth University in terms of who would do a better job at handling the economy in Virginia. Gillespie wins 41-29.
Ooh.
If you look at who they said which candidate would handle crime better, Gillespie wins 40-24, and that's of all people in that state. So, like, it's like we've been saying about, like, Trump stuff. You look at individual policies, he's blowing it out of the water. People just don't like him.
Yeah.
You look at individual policies, people think Gillespie will do better, yet you have it like him barely winning. It doesn't make sense. So,
And those numbers are never mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to say it. I think he might actually win this thing.
I think he will. The election's on what, November
7th.
November 7th.
Tuesday, November 7th.
So we'll have some news to talk about pretty soon here.
That'll be a couple more weeks.
I looked up Jackie Rosen in our database. He's the Nevada representative from the 3rd district there. And we have various different scores that, he's a Democrat obviously, that tell us about the candidates there. So there's a website called Progressive Punch that gives letter grades out for different, liberals on how liberal they are. And he is an F there for that website.
Ooh.
So he's not even really a good Democrat. So I don't know. What's the appeal of this guy?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're wondering where the 3rd district in Nevada is, it's everything south of Las Vegas. From Just, literally take a map of Nevada, find Las Vegas, draw a line directly under it from border to border, boom, everything down there.
So Tarkanian against this guy is pretty good chance we win this thing.
Yeah. I mean, most of that area is unincorporated Clark County. It's mostly rural. It's not really urban very much. So, compared to other areas, I mean, if you look at the 2016 election, even though that Democrat guy got elected, Trump actually won that district 48-47. Believe it or not.
Very close,
so
but
it's a purple district, even though blue guy holds it. I'm not sure what our D+ rating was for that district. It might have been.
It's like D1.
If it's D1, you have a good chance of swinging something like that, especially if everything kind of pushes right during the midterms, which it looks like things are going to, for the most part, be that way. At least for the Senate, that is. For the House, we probably have it about even. But yeah, so we have a good chance. Actually, the Cook PVI has an R+2.
R+2.
Yeah, that's one of the few Democrats that holds it in a Republican, should be Republican district where a Democrat wins. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. So we're looking good if we can possibly win. We might be able to win that congressional seat
as well.
So that Jackie Rosen guy, he might lose 2 elections in 1 year.
That would be pretty good stuff. Let's go into this polling that we have for Republicans fighting against the establishment. You got for us, Bobby.
Right. So there is a recent poll that was released by who actually released this? This was by it was actually by Harvard University. So if you remember last week, we talked about how the war of Steve Bannon versus the GOP establishment has officially begun.
Yes. There's
polling now that continues to shed light on that. Now, before I say this, remember back, we've been talking about this for a while. There was polling that released that said that 59% of GOP voters see themselves as Trump supporters first and members of the Republican Party second.
Yes.
This confirms that. 61% of GOP voters support Steve Bannon's fight against the establishment. 61%. 56% of GOP voters want Mitch McConnell to resign as a Senate Majority Leader. So that's pretty telling. Okay.
And what's the useful thing that we can glean from this information? If you're going to run in the primary and say that you're going to vote to take Mitch McConnell out of the Senate leadership, you're probably going to win your primary.
Yeah.
Which Tarkanian has promised to do already.
Yeah, and Steve Bannon's met with Danny Tarkanian. He's already endorsed him.
Yeah.
He's Bannon's candidate. Kelly Ward, Bannon's candidate.
Yeah.
Roy Moore, Bannon's candidate.
And all these guys will vote against McConnell.
Of course, yeah. Every single one of them. Like, I find it very, very unlikely that Mitch McConnell will continue to be Senate Majority Leader once our guys get into office in January of 2019.
Which is going to be awesome.
That's the first thing they're going to do. Once they swear in as, senators, they got to elect a new Senate Majority Leader. It's not going to be Mitch McConnell. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know. I'm not saying who I think it's going to be because I have no idea. But it's not going to be Mitch McConnell. And he sees the time is up. Like we said, Mitch McConnell only has an 18% approval rating among Republicans in this country.
Yeah.
And that's even lower in his own state. It was like 19%, or about the same in his state, 19%.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Steve Bannon versus Mitch McConnell. Bannon's going to win this thing. Bannon's candidates are going to win this thing. Bannon already said that he's going to endorse the primary challenger of every single opponent of incumbent GOP senators except for Ted Cruz.
Yep.
Except for Ted Cruz.
I mean, at this point, like with the GOP incumbents, with the GOP establishment, there's really not much difference between them and your average Democrat. If you look at like John McCain, and I asked just anybody, like, what's the difference between John McCain and a Democrat? What are they going to tell me?
He voted against Obamacare repeal and replace.
One has a D next to his name, one has an R. That is the only difference.
It's the same exact thing. Same with like Jeff Flake. It's like, what's the difference between these guys and your average Democrat? Like, they have no response because they are basically like their average Democrat. Like, the fact that every Republican isn't like Ted Cruz should be shocking. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to look at the rule of law and go, okay, here's what the rule of law says. We're going to do that. Period. End of story. There's no like, I guess I kind of feel this way today, so.
And like, it's not enough just to be voting in line with the president. You need to be out there campaigning for the president, have a sense of urgency and saying, hey, I see that you guys voted for this. This is what you want. I am out here working to do that for you. Okay, if you're not doing that for us, it's time for you to go. And Steve Bannon has said, pretty much that.
Yeah, and especially when it comes down to House district races for the primaries, I hate to say it, but obviously that 59% of Republicans thing, that's not going to be even across the board in every single congressional district. But for the most part, that's going to be true. I find it very unlikely that there's any congressional districts that are the opposite of that, where it's under 50%. You could literally just have just run ads in your district saying, I'm going to support Trump's policies. My opponent in the Republican primary is not and has not. Who are you going to vote for? Mm-hmm. That will probably win you enough right there. As long as you have the name recognition and, when you're running, that's one of the things about 2016 is people were worried that Trump being the nominee would hurt down ballot races. No, that helped him win down ballot races. We wouldn't have a Republican senator from Pennsylvania if Trump would not have won that state. So that's what I'm saying is when it comes to these down ballot races, don't worry about should I disassociate myself from Trump. No, jump on board that bandwagon. Say, I am part of this movement. I am Trump's guy. I will be Trump's guy. I'm going to fight for his agenda against the Democrats and their establishment Republicans, our own people. The guy who's your incumbent here sucks. Mm-hmm. He's voted against this stuff. He's not going to support this agenda. You guys voted for the president. You want him or not. That will win you it. That's all you got to do.
In 2016, they're so afraid of losing races because Trump's name was at the top of the ballot. Yeah. Okay, Trump's name being at the top of the ballot saved us the Senate.
Uh-huh. I mean, go to a Trump rally and tell me you want to be against that.
Yeah.
You go to your average Trump rally and it's like, you'd be a fool to say, I don't want to embrace this guy's name.
And the thing is, the hatred, maybe the word hatred's not the best word, but I'm just going to use it. The hatred that MAGA people have for the GOP establishment is amazing. If you had a Trump rally and all Trump did was walk up there and say, what do you all think about John McCain? Yep. You'd hear the loudest
Instant
boos
boo.
of your life.
Instant boo.
What do you think about Bob Corker?
Boos.
Loudest boos of your life. What do you think about... Imagine if he actually said, what do you think about Mitch McConnell? Boo. In Kentucky.
Yep.
He could do a rally in Kentucky. Boo. How is anybody in the establishment actually going to think that they're going to win this fight? They're not.
No.
And that's
they live in a bubble, dude.
And we've shown it doesn't even matter with money at this point. With
it
the
doesn't.
Luther Strange Roy Moore thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for money. And, I know we've mentioned this every single show. But, it's not even going to matter for money when it actually comes to the actual elections themselves. The general elections, I guess I could say. I mean, look at every single special election that's happened. The Republicans have won. I mean, look at the Karen Handel election in Georgia. Democrats outspent her, 19-1, 20-1, and she still won.
Well, I think what's happening now is we're in an age of where, the internet is becoming just unbelievably accessible. So, back in the day, you gerrymandered your district, you had the money, you're going to win no matter what. It doesn't matter. But nowadays, I truly believe the reason Trump won this election was because of the internet.
Yes.
I don't know if he would have won without the I really don't. I don't know if he would have won without a lot of the internet support he got. For example, what we're doing right here, this podcast. This couldn't have existed, a few years ago.
No.
But with technology now the way it is, you can take someone who has all the money in the world, and you can take someone who has good ideas, and you can get those pretty close. And in many cases, in Trump's case, that person without the money can win. If you have the right ideas and the right arguments, you can get them out on a platform, and they can get to all the people you want them to see without you spending a dime half the time.
And we've talked about on the show that what we think Trump should do is he should hold during the general elections next year, he should hold rallies for individual representatives in close districts. Mm-hmm. Get your people out. That would be
one rally could just do it for a lot of these places.
The Jackie Rosen thing. In that Nevada 3rd Congressional District. If Danny Tarkanian wins, hold a dual rally in South Las Vegas.
Yeah. Trump Tower in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Or just one of those areas in Vegas. Hold a rally there. Have Danny Tarkanian there. And the guy from that 3rd district. Hell, get the people from the surrounding districts too, even though most of those surrounding are Republican districts. Because the people are going to drive up, especially if they know ahead of time, hey, the guy running in my district against the shitty Democrat in our district is going to be there.
And
I'm going to go.
And we don't know who is going to go against Jackie Rosen for that 3rd district place. And I bet a lot of people won't even know. But if Trump goes and brings that guy, people will learn that guy's name.
Especially close districts. Now, I hate to say this, but if a district isn't a close district, don't even try. Don't waste the money.
Yeah.
But close districts, even if it's a close but lean right district, in close lean left districts. Do that. Get all your candidates that you can possibly get. Hell, if someone's running for governor, get the governor candidate there, the senator candidate there, and your local representative candidates there. Get them all there and say, vote for these people. Screw everybody else. Steve Bannon likes these people. I like these people.
Yeah.
You do that, that's a winning combination for 2018. And that's what needs to be done. Frankly, I think he's probably going to do it too.
I mean, he's been winning.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next thing that we have here, though, which is I guess some bad news, and that is Kid Rock is not running for Senate in 2018.
Yeah.
This week he was on Howard Stern, and Stern asked him about the him running for the Senate, and he said, "Fuck no, I'm not running for Senate. Are you fucking kidding me? Who couldn't figure that out? I'm releasing a new album. I'm going on tour too. Are you fucking shitting me?" So I don't know what all that stuff was about at this point.
Yeah, like, what was the point of all that?
I mean, he made it really look like he was running.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually really upset to hear this news because I was really excited about it. I mean, heck, I think he could have won.
I think he would have won. I mean, polling show he had like a 2-point lead over Debbie Stabenow.
Yeah, I think he would have easily won that race, and I don't know why he was doing all that if he was just going to go on a radio show and be like, yeah, I'm not running after all.
So, we're going to have to update our database on this. He was running for a Debbie Stabenow seat. She doesn't have bad approval ratings in Michigan.
No.
Now, Michigan is turning more red, so we'll have to see who they can field against it, but I don't know. I think at this point, her seat is pretty safe.
Yeah.
Unless anything else can come out for us.
Unless they can get a really good Republican candidate in there, I think she's probably going to get reelected.
Which sucks, because that was one of the seats that we had a good chance of taking.
Yeah.
So
now, that being said, Kid Rock might have been being sarcastic, and he might actually still go on to do it. I mean, if there's enough pressure for him to do it, he might. But, it's his decision, and
at this point, he says no.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I hate the fact that he had to be all what's the word people like to use?
He was cock teasing.
Yeah, he was teasing us. I don't like to be teased like this, Mr.
I mean, that would have been good, man. That would have been something really funny to watch.
No, you know what I think Kid Rock does need to do?
What?
Since he has all this pressure, he should go out and endorse whoever the Republican candidate is.
Should at least
That's a
help.
good point,
Yeah, at least help them.
Throw concerts, yeah.
Say, hey, I'm sorry I teased y'all with this, but this guy's really good. I'm going to hold some concerts for him. I'm going to come to his rallies, because that's the future politics.
that would be great, man.
Rallies for senators. Like, that stuff doesn't really happen. He could go out there, get everyone out. He was signing people up. He was registering people to vote at his concerts. Continue to do that. Do that. Get your awareness out there, and you can maybe still flip that seat. But as of now, I'm worried about it because of what he's done. So.
Yeah. Let's go to this last story, and then let's just move on for time's sake.
Which story are you referring to?
The Texas House Speaker one.
Okay, so yeah, here's a story that's, here's some local news if you're from Texas. We got some good news out. Texas House Speaker Joe Straus won't be seeking re-election. Now, for most of you that listen to our show are from Texas, and a lot of people that listen to our show aren't from Texas, but if you don't know who Joe Straus is, he is a Republican from San Antonio in the Texas House of Representatives. He's been the House Speaker since 2009, I believe. He's been in there a while, but he's pretty much like a Democrat, establishment Republican. He sucks. And for those of you who pay attention to local state politics here in Texas, Governor Abbott called a special session of Congress to try to pass a bunch of extra stuff that didn't get passed during the regular legislative sessions, and Joe Straus pretty much stonewalled almost everything through the entire process. As a Republican, he's terrible. So he's seeing the writing on the wall too. There's enough people against him in the Republican Party here in the state. Whereas, I was hearing rumors that people who are the heads of the Republican Party in Texas were telling him, I don't want you to run again. I don't want you in my party. I want you gone. And this guy is a prominent figure in the Texas House of Representatives. So if you're from Texas, that's some good news for you.
So there's some good stuff there. It's good that we keep Texas red, and that guy's not helping the cause at all.
You know who I'd like to be the Texas Speaker of the House of Representatives?
Who?
Our guy, Jason Isaac.
Jason Isaac?
That'd be unbelievably
If not Jason Isaac, what's her name? Donna Campbell.
Donna Campbell.
Donna Campbell, for you guys know who Donna Campbell is?
State senator.
Yeah, she's a state senator?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess she wouldn't really be it for the House, but maybe the state Senate leader.
Who knows?
I think she might be able to do that. But anyways,
Jason Isaac would be beyond perfect.
yeah, Jason
That'd be
Isaac.
so great.
Jason Isaac is the representative that represents Hays County, which is where we are right now, and we've all met him. He's awesome. We like him, and
he's really good.
He's got a good future in politics if he decides to stay on. So yeah, I would support him if he decided to do that. He probably doesn't. He's too new in order.
It also costs money to do stuff like that.
Yeah,
which I mean, he's a guy that drives a truck for a living, so it's hard.
yeah, that's true. So, with that being said, I'm happy.
Yeah,
that's what it gets down to. Is we got one of our guys out of our state legislator, and that point goes to every person here listening. It's not all about national politics. It's about your state and local politics too. There are plenty of establishment swamp creatures there that need to be gone.
Yeah.
Figure those people out for your own states and get them out of there if you can. Endorse the other candidates, support the other candidates, volunteer for the other candidates in the primary here, and drain those swamps of your own states too.
Yeah, and we'll be giving you guys the insight on who needs to be drained as these primaries come close. We're going to be going very in depth on that stuff.
We plan to be doing episodes and going through every single House of Representatives seat in the United States Congress, every single Senate seat, and every single governor seat up for re-election here going forward. So look out for that. That's honestly, we're probably not even going to do that till after the new year.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like once the primary season starts to get going. But we're going to do it in order of
elections.
So I know Texas's primary date is March 6th. So obviously we will be the first one that we do. And then I believe Illinois is like second, so like that you kind of understand. It's going to be jumping around. So, but sorry, in the description of every single one, we'll have at least some sort of order
what states we're going over, or whatever,
or we'll say like what states are up next. So look up the date of when your state is having your primaries, and if you can do that, you'll kind of understand the order that we're going in there. So be looking forward to that. That's coming, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing that.
Oh, yeah. This is some of my favorite stuff to go over.
It's going to be probably the most high-info thing you ever hear.
Yeah, let's go into the bottom of the stack national stuff we have.
All right, so now that we are in the bottom of the stack, let's move on to some of these stories here. So the first story up is we have the brother of the Las Vegas shooter was arrested for possession of child pornography.
Now, this was in Comp Sushi Guy.
Yes, this was not Comp Sushi Guy. This was his other brother. And apparently they said that they've got him on 20 criminal counts, including possession of more than 600 images of child pornography, which includes 10 or more of a prepubescent minor.
Jesus Christ.
Most of the counts involve sexual exploitation of a child. They said that his brother, Bruce Paddock, that is the one who we are talking about, was from North Hollywood, California. They said cops were tipped off that there was child porn on his computer when they got a search warrant. They said, obviously, the investigation began before his brother shot up the Vegas Music Festival, though. So this is a guy who, they've been looking into this guy for a while. That entire family's really fucked up.
Yeah, the dad was prominent bank robber, was it? Mm-hmm. One of the Paddock brothers goes on to commit the biggest mass shooting of all time. Another one does child pornography. And then there's obviously something wrong with the other one.
Yeah, the other guy's like, Comps!
Yeah, just watch any of his videos.
Yeah,
those
you
videos
just watch the guy's videos and be like, okay, there's something wrong with
this guy's probably the worst of the three.
So, I mean, I think he's hiding something. That's why he's acting so weird.
I do think Comp's brother is hiding something. So I guess, what do we got? We got Shooter brother, Comp's brother, and Porn brother.
Pedo brother.
And Pedo brother. That's a good way to describe these guys. So
there's also another development in regards to Stephen Paddock we want to get into.
This one is more important.
Yeah.
The laptop that the shooter had in his hotel room had its hard drive missing. And the hard drive went missing before the shooting started. So, yeah.
Or so we're told.
So the question is, if you're going to go shoot up a bunch of people, why would you bring a laptop to your hotel room without its hard drive in there? I highly doubt that the guy brought his laptop without a hard drive just to screw with people after he killed himself. This story gets weirder and weirder by the minute. It has been over a month now, and we still know absolutely nothing. It's insane.
Not one thing of security videos from a place that has more cameras than Fort Knox.
Exactly.
Nothing.
This place it's incredible just how, I mean, like we've talked in the show, and I'm pretty sure most people listening to us would probably agree. We're obviously being lied to. Something is being covered up at some level.
We don't know a motive yet. It's been like a month.
We don't know motive. We don't know who financed these people. We don't know any of this stuff. Like, you'd think by now we'd at least know something, okay? The Twin Towers got attacked, and within hours they were like, yeah, this is Osama bin Laden. Within hours. Granted, whether or not that was true, most people think it is. Still, within hours, okay? Every conspiracy theory you can think of has been applied to this case. And there's no evidence to prove any of them wrong. Like you're saying, I've seen more fake news come out about this shooting than any event in my life.
It's because they won't give us any information
Exactly.
on it to debunk it.
And then the information they do give us makes it even weirder.
It makes the conspiracy theories even more plausible.
Yeah, like when they released the death photo and his leg is under a gun that's propped up. It's like, okay, why? What? Mm-hmm. That gun wouldn't naturally fall like that. He had to be under there. Before, you tell me he laid down and shot himself in the head? What? Little stuff like that.
What's on
then
the
you
note,
got, you got that security guard that got shot before the thing happened, and apparently, then he disappears, and then he goes on Ellen, who's on the paycheck for, Mandalay, the company that owns Mandalay Bay. They're on this, she's got her, little slot machines there, so it's okay, this is really confusing. And then it comes out to, the database of the state of Nevada requires any person that's a private security guard or a public security guard to register with their security guards thing. Every Vegas casino especially would be hiring people that make sure they're registered. That's a for sure thing. That makes sense. That guy wasn't on there, which is even more. It's little stuff like that all over this place. It's what in the world is going on? So I don't know. Just add this onto the list of really weird things, and the fact that the hard drive of his laptop that was in the freaking room was missing. I don't know, dude. I don't know. So, let's move on.
Yeah, so the next thing we wanted to get into was some very interesting polling out of Pew Research that I saw this week. That is showing that America is becoming even more polarized than ever before, and over a very short period of time this has happened. So they've been conducting these different surveys in regards to how people kind of ideologically view themselves since 1994. They've also done them in 1999, 2004, 2011, and 2015, and also 2017, obviously. And you can see from the charts that, there used to be a big median of where people used to be back in 1994, but now we are completely on different islands as far as how we ideologically view ourselves. The median Republican is now more conservative than 97% of Democrats, and the median Democrat is more liberal than 95% of Democrats. By comparison, what?
You mean Republicans, that second word.
Yeah, of Republicans. By comparison, in 1994, there was substantially more overlap between the two party groups than there were today. Just 64% of Republicans were to the right of the median Democrat, while 70% of Democrats were to the left of the median Republican. Put differently, 23% of Republicans were more liberal than the median Democrat in 1994, while 17% of Democrats are more conservative than the median Republican. Today, those numbers are just 1% and 3% respectively.
Amazing.
Also, just going straight into the next thing that also ties a lot into this is both sides in politics don't think they're winning at all. So some research out of Tuesday from Pew Research shows that 6 in 10 Americans believe that their side is losing more than winning on the issues that matter the most, while only 1 in 4 think their side is mostly winning. So it's really crazy. We're getting into America where people are extremely polarized to either the left or the right, but regardless, they think they're losing. So who is actually winning?
I think our side's winning. I mean,
personally, I think we're winning, but
with how in depth we get with our elections coverage, I can tell you that our side is winning, or at least our side is bound. By next year, is going to have a very large uptick in the amount of winning. So if you're a Democrat, yeah, you're right for once. I actually gotta say, Democrats are right. Your side isn't winning. But yeah, only 1 in 4 think their side is mostly winning. guarantee you that's not all Republicans there. There got to be some Democrats who think that they're winning. And, I got to say it. A lot of Democrats are probably right. They would think their side is winning because Trump's not able to do anything.
There's also
if you watch TV, you think the Democrats are winning for
Yeah.
sure.
There's also some other statistics that we get from this second survey that are interesting to talk about. In regards to what kind of optimism or pessimism towards the next generation, surveyed 48% believe that the next generation will live a worse life than the ones currently than we do, while compared to 29% believe that life will be better. So people are also generally more pessimistic about the future, and that ties into them with their sense of losing. And I think that sense of losing is making people polarized. I think you can, I don't know, that's just a guess of what these numbers show us, but it does paint a very interesting picture of how things are, amongst Americans at the moment. And you can feel this polarization, and you can feel the sense of losing.
Yeah.
Especially if you're talking to leftists. We talk about Trump derangement syndrome. That's pretty much the only mode of existence they have at the moment. There's not a lot of winning on their side.
He lives rent-free in their heads.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how he did so well at real estate when he lives rent-free in people's heads. But, yeah, I just thought those were very interesting statistics that came out of Pew Research. Any thoughts on it, or you want to move on?
I think it's a good thing. I think the more polarized America gets, I think the more information that's going to get out there.
And also, I think the more polarized America gets, what it's really doing is, the people who are like hard left or hard right haven't really gone anywhere. It's the people in the middle that have shifted sides. And what that's really doing is it's forcing people in the middle to choose a side.
Uh-huh.
And the side that is winning is the side that's
Our
getting
side.
those people onto their side, and that's our side. And I think a lot of it does have to do with just how batshit crazy the left has become in the last couple
They're
of years.
abdicating the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been reading stuff a lot online the last couple of days where they're just saying, screw the establishment we have on the left. Let's just go more left, because the vanguard of the left, your hard left, your intellectual left, is way left of their elective representatives at the moment. And, also the average Republican is right of his elected officials. So, you're seeing that really exacerbated as people lose confidence in who they elected.
And, I think that's a really good point you bring up about, the average Republican is way to the right of your elected officials. That's kind of what we're seeing with that whole Steve Bannon thing.
Yeah.
Is that, we're starting to get our people in there that aren't to the left of us. And the Democrats are trying to do that same thing too. I mean, I know we're already out of the election segment, but we've talked about the show. There are over 200 Democrats running in Democrat primaries this year.
Yeah.
The most they've ever had before is 60. So they're going to have to spend what little money they have defending themselves from their far left challengers.
And they're going to push them left.
And they're going to try to push them left. And that's the thing is, let's say you get a super far left person to defeat an establishment Democrat that's there. If that is a close district, you really think in a close district they're going to choose a super far left person? No, they're going to pick whoever's deemed more moderate, and that's probably going to be the Republican.
Abdicate the right or the center to us.
Yes, and we will continue to win, and they'll lose power, which is, like we said, they claim that they're losing. So
No, like you said, the middle, the more polarized we get, the middle has to choose a side.
And it, as the graphs show, they are.
They are, and
Yeah.
then because it makes sense. Like the thing is with the left is right now, the really, really, really far left is concentrated on the coastal cities,
right.
or the big cities in general. Your average Democrat in Nebraska, or anywhere else in the Mideast, the Northwest, if they have to choose between someone who's saying, guys, I'm going to lower your taxes, maybe build a border wall, and then this person over here telling you there's 72 genders, next year there'll probably be more than that, and they're just going off this just way far left. It makes the quote-unquote far right not that far right. Like, what Trump is doing isn't even really... Trump is basically just being JFK. Like, he's not as far right as everyone's making him out to be. It's just we happen to be more polarized by just saying, like, hey, this right-wing area, like what Bannon's doing, what Trump's doing, We like that. That's not really as far right. Like we're not authoritarian. We're just basically saying we're going to give you more freedom. We're going to lower your taxes. We're going to let you keep more of your money. These guys are just trying to tell you there's like 72 genders, and they're going to want you to pay even more in taxes.
Yeah, and
who are they going to choose?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were talking about how, like, even the center is being viewed as far right now, what you're really describing is the fishhook theory. Which, for those of you who don't know about the fishhook theory, imagine the fishhook. The fishhook theory.
The fishhook.
Yeah, so you have, like, a circle that's labeled far left, and you have a line coming out of it going towards the right, and then it curves up and then points back into itself about halfway through. That point at the very end of it is the far right. Directly under it, literally in the same spot, is centrist. What you're doing is, you're making it seem to, like, from their standpoint, a person who is a centrist and a person who is a far right person is the same thing.
Yeah. And that kind of, that shows with how they're so willing to call anyone a fascist or anyone a Nazi when, they're holding, like, very conventional mainstream right views, which, it dulls, it grays the entire idea of, like, being far right, which, I mean, I'm a pretty right-wing guy. I'm fine with them doing this. Continue to do it. It's good for me in the end. I don't care.
We have the better arguments, so what do we care?
It's not going to hurt our side for them to continue doing what they're doing. So I say
no, just let them do what they do. Let's move on to the next thing that we have here, though.
Yeah. So the next story we have up is Harvey Weinstein has completed sex rehab addiction in only 1 week.
What a miracle. Wow, he really got it around that quick. It
literally is a miracle. I think, like, whatever he
It's a Hollywood miracle.
He's a completely changed man. All those years of sexual harassment and pervertedness, gone.
Gone.
In 1 week. It's amazing how quickly you can turn someone around.
They said he's not even going to have sex anymore, period.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It worked that well.
Well, ain't that something. So, yeah, I guess, good for him, right?
Yeah.
Good for him. Such a great guy. I'm so glad he was able to solve his problem so quickly. Maybe now he can get back to producing movies again.
Give it like a year, he will be.
And you know what?
I'll give it a few months and he'll be.
And you know what? If he's, if he's such a changed man, then all those people that he did things to should forgive him. And they should go back to working for him to prove just how good a guy he is.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously never going to do it again.
Yep.
Especially since he completed the rehab. And since he completed it in 1 week, all that means is that he's, like, so much better. Like, some people, it takes time. Like, for him, he's like, I got this, bro.
Yep.
I got this.
He's that good.
And that means he is that good. So, like, why wouldn't you want to work for him now? If you were a forgiving person, you'd want to work for him. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
So,
obviously very sarcastic.
Yeah, obviously.
But yeah, I guess only a week. We'll have to see what happens. Hopefully he, like, goes to jail or something. I don't know.
He ain't going to jail.
I'll give it 1 week before there's another sexual harassment claim that comes out.
Yeah.
Anyways,
let's go into some statue stuff.
Yeah, so we got two things on statues. First things first, the Teddy Roosevelt statue, which is right outside the New York History Museum, has been vandalized. Some people took some red paint and they threw it onto it at some point between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. the morning of October 25th. So, according to the New York Post. It's a statue that's been there since 1939, and one New York resident was like, there is no cause for doing things like this in society where everybody is free to express their opinion, but not in this way. So even in a super liberal area of New York,
they don't like it.
Their citizens are like, this is wrong, why are you doing this? It's Teddy Roosevelt, why are you defacing the statue? So the movement, a group calling itself the Monument Removal Brigade, took credit for the attack. In a rambling statement released Thursday, the group said the, quote, real damage was not to the statue, but with the, quote, lies with patriarchy, white supremacy, and settler colonialism embodied by the statue.
Oh, my God.
Honestly, I don't even want to say anything more about that thing.
Yeah.
I want to go on to this next story, which pisses me off even more.
It's the Washington one.
This is the George
This one
Washington
really pisses me off.
So, George Washington's church that he went to says that the plaque honoring him must come down. Leaders at the George Washington attended church decided that a plaque honoring the president must be removed. Christ Church in Alexandria, Virginia, which is now an Episcopalian church, If you don't know anything about the Episcopalian Church, imagine Christianity, but with like rampant homosexuality and stuff like that, and lots of women in charge. Not your typical church.
So not Christianity.
Yeah. They said that they're going to take it down, saying that it's not acceptable to all worshipers. Quote, "The plaques in our sanctuary make some in our presence feel unsafe and unwelcome," leaders said. And the referencing that he was a slaveholder, saying some visitors and guests who worship with us choose not to return because they receive an unintended message from the prominent presence of the plaques. Say that 5 times fast. Many in our congregation feel a strong need for the church to stand clearly on the side of all are welcome, no exceptions. So yeah. Remember when Trump was saying, who's next? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson?
Mm-hmm.
Guess who's next? George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. The left will stop at nothing. I will also remind you of the 4 people who were like the clergy, I guess you could use that word in the church, are all women. They're all cat ladies, too.
Yeah.
We did our segment on cat lady politics. You understand what type of person that is when we reference that. They all are it. I personally believe those people should not be in the clergy. I mean, the clergy is not the right word to use. So I'm just going to use that as a very broad brush.
Cat lady clergy.
Yeah. Because the word clergy refers more to Catholicism rather than just like a whole brush of Christianity. But you understand what I mean when I use that term. It's essentially what they are. So it's like...
Who's threatened by plaques for George Washington?
If I went to that church and I saw a plaque
that'd be cool.
saying George Washington sat at this bench, I'd be like, hell yeah, I want to sit here. I mean, if you ever go to, I think it's not Trinity Church in New York City, but there's another church that's in New York City that's not too far from the World Trade Center, or it might actually be Trinity Church. One of those ones that's down there was a church that George Washington himself went to. They literally have the actual pew from like the from the 17 like 60s and 70s or 80s when he went there. They've got it on display like roped off. And it literally says this is the actual like wooden pew that he sat in when he went here. Do you know what that does? That makes me say that's freaking cool. If they took that down and said this is racist, I'd be like, fuck you, I'm never coming back. I'm not going to donate to your, I'm not going to put donations in the donation box for the offering. I'm not going to do it. Like, these people, like, this is what happens when you let leftism take control of Christianity.
It makes people not want to go to those churches.
Yeah. I don't even want to go. I would, if I was driving through Virginia, going on, like, a sightseeing historical tour, which my family does a lot, and we said, hey, that's the church George Washington went to. Let's go there and visit. After hearing the story, I'm not visiting.
Yeah.
Okay? That's one less tourist they're getting. And I know I'm not alone in that either.
100%.
So yeah, like I said,
you can't give the leftists an inch because they'll take them out. Like, you can't appease a leftist.
Right.
You can't say, you can take that statue down because he was a slave owner. They use the same argument for everything. You go, well, I can take this statue down because he was a slave owner. Then I can take the one of Washington. I can take the one of Jefferson. You can't give them anything. You cannot appease a leftist. You can't do it. They want their whole goal is to just get you to give them something because they know if they can take something, it's like a barbed hook. Once you give them something, to take it back, it's like taking a barbed hook out of a fish.
Yeah.
The reason it's hard to get out is because it's barbed. That's why there was so much. That's why the Second Amendment exists. You couldn't take that away and just give back the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. The reason it's there is for that very reason, because they know people will try to take that away. You let them start taking away one statue, they'll go, well, I don't like that one either. Well, I don't like that one either. For now it's slave owners. Who knows what it's going to be next time? Next it could be white people in general don't get statues, or it can be males in general don't get statues. Something. They're not going to stop. You cannot give them anything.
And you know what I think the ultimate irony in this is?
What?
Have any of you ever watched some of those like History Channel shows called like Life After People?
Yeah.
Or at least heard of them?
I've seen them.
No.
The whole point of the show is like what would happen to like buildings and stuff if people just like disappeared. Like,
I've seen those shows.
The decomposition of buildings, how long would it take for them to fall down? Like how long would it take for them to just crumble in like their own weight if people just stopped taking care of this stuff? They got the one where it said how long would it take for like monuments and statues that are like stone ones to like wither away due to like rain dissolving it and stuff? How long would it take for like Mount Rushmore to just be back to a completely smooth mountaintop?
Yeah.
And they said the ultimate irony in all of this is obviously, as you know, some types of stone are harder than others. Some would dissolve pretty quickly and some would take millions of more years. They said that after every single building has been crumbled to ashes, after every single stone statue has dissolved back into just like a clump of rock, after every single metal statue has just rusted itself into falling apart, and everything that used to be like asphalt is just crumbled and dusty, and there's like trees growing up again, and there's no sign of any human existence ever in history. It's that far gone. There will be one thing still remaining. Stone Mountain in Atlanta, Georgia, which is pretty much the Mount Rushmore of Confederate leaders, because that type of rock is like the hardest type that's out there. And after everything is gone, the Confederacy, a monument to the Confederacy, will be the only thing remaining.
Huh.
Oosh.
Too bad they're going to get rid of that next year.
Yeah, they're going after that. I've heard them talk about.
Oh, it's going to happen.
I've heard them
It's gonna
talk
happen.
about tearing that down.
No way in hell they're going to let that stay.
No
way.
They're not. So I just think that's the ultimate irony on all this. You try to take it all down. Once humanity is gone, the only thing remaining in the entire planet will be the Confederacy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the whole planet.
With that said, let's go into some current year college craziness.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us!
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness, the segment of the show that keeps on giving. The segment of the show where we go over the craziness happening on college campuses here and abroad, but predominantly here because we're the best at it. You know, we just got the best colleges, the very best when it comes to being really bad. So let's get into it. The first story we got out of this week is a professor from Shimmer College, which is in Chicago. They have a guy named Dr. Adam Kotsko. This guy has his PhD in theology, ethics, and culture, and he was going on a little bit of a tweet tirade this week. So just kind of out of nowhere, he went off and tweeted, "Whether or not your individual ancestors owned slaves, you as a white person have benefited from slavery and are complicit in it." And someone tweeted back at the dude's like, "What follows from this?" And he tweets back, "We should commit mass suicide."
It sounds like every professor we've talked about on the show so far, honestly.
Yeah.
He then went on to say, "I know it sucks having a racial identity that exists solely to legitimate the subordination and exploitation of other races," he posted, with the hashtag whiteness. So, I guess, we are responsible for things that our ancestors did, even though they're all dead.
Mine weren't even here during the Civil War.
Mine were.
Ooh, Bobby is way more complicit than me.
I am the most, I'm probably, I don't know about you, but I'm probably the most complicit person in this room.
I'm half Hispanic, so I can have both privileges.
Well, there you go. See, I am to blame. Maybe I should kill myself. I know he wants me to.
He does
if
want
every
you
white
to.
person killed themselves, like the civilizations created by white people are objectively the best on planet Earth. Like it's not even up for debate. Like if you literally looked at the world and just killed off every white person, the remaining things left aren't very good.
Exactly. That's objectively true. And, we talked about every single week professors that hate white people.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you should be in African history class.
Oh, God.
Oh.
Maybe I would kill myself if that was the case. It'd be
You
better.
would like that
It'd be
class,
better than
man.
sitting through that bullshit for an hour.
I am in
3 hours a
ethnic
week.
theater workshop right now.
Ethnic
Although it's not
theater.
the worst, but it is kind of anti-white, so I don't like it that much.
Dude, European colonial history in Africa, that class.
Oh, God.
Man, you want to talk about how horrible white people are. Because apparently, white people having symphonies, banking, insurance companies, ships that can sail the entire world, food aplenty. But, they really screwed over those people in Africa who in, the 1850s were still wearing loincloths and sticks.
Living in mud huts.
Yeah, no two-story buildings, no wheel. But yeah, those white people, they really screwed over civilization.
And what's even worse is the next story we have to go into, which I guess I'll cover it since I'm going into it here.
Oh, you can go into it.
So, and what's even worse is they will go out of their way to try to frame us for things, which is exactly the story that we have here from Eastern Michigan University, when there's a bunch of racist graffiti that was found in red, white, and blue spray paint that said KKK and leave N-word, saying, telling
leave N-words.
Leave N-words, telling them to leave. It was discovered on school property on 3 different occasions. According to university police, however, the racist incidents appear to have been a hoax, allegedly perpetuated by a 29-year-old black man named Eddie Curlin.
No way. You mean there's another documented case of someone writing hate speech?
Another
that really
hate
wasn't
crime.
From the...
Yeah, sorry.
It's funny because, how many people do these guys think are in the KKK? Since the 20s, the KKK, hasn't really had that many people. There's, a few thousand people in the KKK.
Yeah, I mean, other than LBJ, who'd they have?
No, and Robert Byrd, Hillary Clinton's friend and mentor.
Yeah.
But, there's not that many people in the KKK right now, guys. They're not and the ones that aren't going around spray painting, get out.
Yeah, exactly.
No one, most people in the KKK now, are probably either open about it or they don't want anyone to know because it could ruin their entire career.
Yeah, the last thing they're going to do is hey, it would be a really good idea for our cause? Let's spray paint racist graffiti over a college campus.
Yeah.
That's sure to get people to join our side. No, I mean, have there actually been, of all these documented, fake hate crimes, have any been actually proven to be real? I haven't seen a single one.
No.
I have saved on my computer entire folders of just all the fake ones. And it's insane. They're all the same. It's just, let me just spray paint this, or I'm going to hurt myself in this. And, they all just follow the same pattern, and they're all blatantly false.
Mm-hmm.
And they had protests on their campus, and they had to hold, what was it, counseling for the kids that if they had hurt feelings, and they had to have new diversity inclusion initiatives.
Which just means more non-white things.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, this was all done just to frame Whitey. And the guy that was doing this knew that this is how they'd respond, so this is why he did that.
And the thing that I find, maybe not the worst, but just very bad about all these cases is you have so many leftists and Democrats and people who hate white people who will see the original story from this and be like, see, here's the evidence. This stuff's happening all over the place. It's like what the media does. You'll tweet out something fake, get 50,000 retweets.
Yep.
The retraction saying, sorry, that was fake, you get 50.
Yep.
And the same thing happens. And, I mean...
all the people that I know still think that when that church in Mississippi was burned, they still think it was a neo-Nazi.
That was the guy who went to the church.
I know, but see, no one knows that.
And it was a black guy, again.
Yeah. No one knows that because they saw... I remember when that first happened on Reddit, it was on the front page, multiple subreddits, tens of thousands of upvotes, this is what Trump's America looks like. And then it turns out,
it was fake.
It took a while, but later it came out, it was completely fake, and everyone just goes, no one knows about it.
Yeah.
We know about it because we actually looked into it, but they have no idea. They still think white people are just burning churches.
Yeah.
I guess we can get into the next story then.
Yeah, we can go to the next one. So the next one we have is out of University of Southern California. There's a professor of education there, Charles H. Davis, who says that universities that punish leftist students who shut down speaking events featuring conservative speakers are reinforcing white supremacy. So Davis cited the unruly students who disrupted Daily Wire editor-in-chief Ben Shapiro's speaking event at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in late 2016, saying they were battling racist rhetoric advanced by Shapiro. Many students who engaged in disrupting a speech by Ben Shapiro, former editor of Breitbart News, which was recently exposed for its intentional efforts to seed neo-Nazi and white nationalist ideas into the mainstream, would have been considered for suspension and expulsion. This despite the fact that their civil disobedience was in direct response to the racist rhetoric advanced by Shapiro, even though Shapiro wasn't even a part of Breitbart at the time when they did that. But Davis also told Campus Reform, punishing protesters unfairly criminalizes students, and that colleges who do so run the risk of creating an unsafe and threatening environment He had that students who protest are disproportionately students of colors and students representing other marginalized groups. Issuing a punishment, especially in these cases, is a clear form of criminalization, criminalization by deeming protests unacceptable. Davis contends that colleges must resist the constant conflation of hate speech and free speech. He says the censorship of hate speech is permissible because hate speech is violent and invites violence, which should not be allowed on campus. He concludes by taking up a punitive approach to what is clearly a demand for greater racial equity and inclusion. Administrators demonstrate that they are more concerned with criminalizing those who labor in the name of justice than addressing real issues with material consequences for students of color.
So pretty much saying, yeah, I'm going to give you free reign to destroy because I don't like what the other people are saying.
Yeah, space
that's
destroy.
Racist. Therefore, you killing them is justified.
They get to shut down whoever they want. If you stop them, that's white supremacy. You can't do that. Look, all these people protesting, they're not white. So, hey, if you stop them, you're being a racist, You're doing more white supremacy.
I mean, it goes to what we were talking about, how, the left does not believe in free speech. I mean, we've looked at the polling where, 19% of all college students across the U.S. believe that using violence to shut down a speaker is justified.
Yeah.
As long as they're like a Nazi.
Yeah.
Which, they're attacking Ben Shapiro. This guy, he's not radical in any way.
How is he a neo-Nazi? He's Jewish.
He's
it's just a buzzword, just neo-Nazi, racist, homophobe.
Of course.
Ben Shapiro is the epitome of mainstream conservatism. There's nothing edgy about him, but because he's right-wing explicitly, he's a danger.
He's an extremely reasonable guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very civil, very nice.
Very articulate.
Yeah, there's no, he's not some radical extremist calling for, violence in any way.
He just wants to, get the government out of people's lives and stuff. And
he's a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a professor. Who am I to, contend with his thoughts?
With his intellect.
They are the intellectuals.
Yes,
they are the ones who are educated.
He's educated, and I'm just a rube.
Let's move on.
Let's go to the next one.
Let's see who has
you got this one.
Outstanding. So, a professor from let's see what college this is from the University of Illinois is saying that algebra and geometry perpetuate white privilege.
Wow.
Yeah. Gutierrez, which I guess is the professor's name there. Rochelle Gutierrez worries that algebra and geometry perpetuate white privilege because emphasizing terms like the Pythagorean theorem and pi give the impression that math was largely developed by Greeks and other Europeans. She also worries that evaluations of math skills can perpetuate discrimination against minorities, especially if they do worse than their white counterparts. She says, on many levels, mathematics itself operates as whiteness. Who gets credit for doing and developing mathematics? Who is capable in mathematics? And who is seen as part of the mathematical community is generally viewed as white.
What?
Yeah.
That's some,
there's not even any way to respond to that. It's okay, algebra is racist.
Yeah, because the people who, wrote down these things and developed these formulas were white. Here's a hint. Maybe they were white.
Why does that matter?
Because they figured it out. Okay, if a black person was able to figure out the Pythagorean theorem first, it would be called whatever his name was.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah, we'd call it, whatever.
Maybe it'd be Bobo's theorem.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that.
I was gonna say they named it after pi. Pi is a Greek letter.
Yeah.
I don't think pi was actually developed by the Greeks though. 3.14, that mathematical calculation. I don't think that was developed by the Greeks. It was just named after a Greek letter.
But in his explanation, he's saying just she. She says,
of course.
Yeah. She says, well, I don't want to gender, but she says that whites do better on math and other than people of color. So maybe that's a way that's going to cause inequality. And it's just that's not based on what your race is. That's just based on what your ability towards math is. I am really bad at math. I don't know anything about math. There's a lot of people of color that are way better at math than me. It has nothing to do with being white. But somehow, because white people thought of mathematical concepts, and I don't know, Also, have these people like seen how well Asians do at math? Like,
Exactly.
There's no white supremacy in math. I'll tell you that.
Well, once they get rid of white people, Asians are next.
Yeah, they'll be next. I mean, you break it down in like terms of privilege, they do way better than whites.
In every way.
Yeah.
They make more money, have better education, live in nicer houses.
Which is why affirmative action like hurts them more than it does whites.
Mm-hmm.
But once whites are out of the way, like you said, yeah, Asians will be next.
I hate these people. I really do.
We
only got one more story.
Let's go to the last story, then we'll go into the break, then we'll come back to international. So here's the last story that we got for the week for current year college craziness. And this is out of Northwestern University. Northwestern University plans to double the capacity of the Men's Project that it launched last year to help male students deconstruct their own masculinity. Each quarter since spring 2016, NU Men has offered 12 openings for a 6-week program where men can learn how oppression is impacted by their male or masculine identity and how they can contribute to stopping violence. The program was launched by Paul Ang, the school's director of men's engagement, immediately after the university received a $30,000 violence prevention grant. $300,000. Thanks for that, Bobby. And, they go on to host, courses over gender identity, They held some workshops on combating toxic masculinity, and they opened these things up to people with gender identity expression and or biological alignment with maleness, manness, or masculinity.
Wait, there's a difference between those three things?
I guess there is. The way they make it sound like it's a subjective thing, but it isn't really. But yeah.
God, the thing is a 6-week program.
6-week program.
I'm going to spend the next 6 weeks of my life learning about gender identity, expression, biological sex aligning with maleness, manness, and masculinity. Where's the professor telling me to kill myself? Hey, bring him back over here.
I mean, and most of those guys probably going to those seminars aren't very masculine, I would imagine.
Oh, of course not. They want to say, I guess they say, engaging men, particularly college men, in conversations around what it means to be a man can reduce gender-based violence and develop healthier relationships with masculinity, explained Dan Amato, a facilitator of the course, adding that they are always looking for opportunities where we can engage more men in that conversation.
Dude,
I'll tell you one thing for sure. Any man, quote unquote, that ever actually engages in that conversation is not actually a man.
Any man that has to ask what it means to be a man isn't a man.
And I'm not talking about a biological or a transgender. I mean the concept of what it means to be a man. I will agree with them. There's a difference between being male and being a man.
Very different.
You can be a male. That don't make you a man.
You can be a bitch.
If you actually believe this bullshit, you ain't a man. That's a fact.
There's a good funny part here. Student David Gleisner, a member of the inaugural class, praised the program in an interview with the Daily Northwesterner for helping him learn about the patriarchy. Quote, "It was a really good space to be able to share in those conversations that you normally wouldn't have with other men, talking about emotions, talking about rape culture, talking about how masculinity relates to the patriarchy," he said. So,
Dude, this guy's probably the biggest fag.
No, I gotta agree with you there. But, David
talking about how the
Gleisner.
patriarchy really brings it. Jesus Christ, dude!
I wouldn't want to put my name out there if I was Mr. David Gleisner there.
Yeah.
I wish it would be really something if they actually had genuine masculinity programs that
I like to see
them
them
actually encourage dudes to I don't know, lift and
take care of yourself. Take pride in your belongings. Make your bed.
Actually be manly.
Don't be a bitch. Protect women. Actually be a man.
That would be worthwhile, and it would do them a lot of good.
We used to have that. It was called middle school.
Yeah,
high school.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's their course on deconstructing masculinity. We're gonna go to the break, and we'll come back, and we'll get into some international news. Not too much, but we'll get into it, and we'll be done.
Yep.
So we'll see you after the break. Okay, welcome back from the break. We're going to get into international news. We're going to go into Europe first, and the big thing that we have there going on is Catalonia. Big craziness all happening out there. This week, Catalonia declared unilateral independence. And there's been a lot of controversy because the government in Madrid doesn't recognize them at all. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Bobby? Because it seems like they keep on talking about it and they're doing things, but nothing's actually happening.
I mean, now it seems like things are actually happening. I mean,
there's been a lot of rallies in the streets.
There's been a lot of rallies on both sides, actually. There's been a lot of rallies. There was a pro-independence rally in Barcelona this week and an anti-independence rally in Madrid this week, both of which had thousands of people show up. So, it's something that the Spanish people are pretty deeply divided on. More so along geographic boundaries. If you're in Catalonia, most of those people are very, very in favor of it. If you're not, most of those people are very, very not in favor of it.
Yeah.
I know, in terms of the rest of the world, it seems like the rest of the world's pretty okay with them splitting.
Well, currently, France, Germany, and the United States have said that they do not recognize Catalonia's independence and that they see Catalonia as part of Spain. So, I don't know. What are they going to do about that?
I mean, if they continue to just stop listening to the Spanish government and they make their own laws and live their own way, I mean, at that point, they're already an autonomous region. So the only thing that's left is an invasion, and at that point, you have a civil war.
Spanish Civil War too.
Obviously, the EU does not want that to happen, so they're going to try to do everything to stop it. But at the same time, I think you have an unstoppable force in Catalonia that's not going to stop until they're independent.
Yeah.
Or dead. One of the two. They're not going to want to compromise on this. So I think no matter what you have in the end, there's going to be an at least somewhat independent Catalonia at the end of this.
Possibly.
And probably a lot of people are going to die first.
A lot of people dying? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the European Union is going to allow a lot of open hostilities. But, I mean, maybe there will have to be some fighting.
At least someone's going to die.
Someone will die. I mean, when they're having the election, they're coming with the Spanish police coming up to their ballots, cracking in heads, taking them. I thought it was cool. I mean, I'm against Catalonian nationalism. Catalonia is the most leftist part of Spain. I don't think they'd be any better off on their own. If they do break away, I mean, I guess the rest of Spain becomes more right-wing, so that's cool, but
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, I completely agree with everything you say. I still tend to have, sort of, kind of, old libertarian beliefs about, supporting independence movements. But, yeah, but they're, complete leftists. And that would just drive down the rest of Europe, if that's the
case.
They
want independence.
Then they're going to get... Because then they're going to be part of the EU.
They want independence so they can bring in, more refugees.
Yeah. So, in regards to that sort of stuff...
And do more communism.
In general, I should say that I support an independence movement, but, no. No. If this was, a right-wing part wanting to leave a left-wing country, then, yeah, I'd be all for it. So, yeah, am I biased? Hell yeah, I am. But at the same time, it's not good for Europe or the world for them to be independent at this point.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Do you have any thoughts on Catalonia, Lance?
I mean, I'm kind of with Bobby on that one. And what you were saying, they just want to be independent. They can take in more refugees who will also want their independence later and probably just destroy Catalonia. I don't see it as a good thing right now.
Yeah. But I guess we'll have to see what happens there.
I will give them credit for one thing. That Catalonian flag looks pretty cool.
It's a pretty cool flag. It's not bad.
That's a pretty cool flag. If they got anything going for them, it's that.
It is a nice flag. Let's go into the next story, and that is we got some statistics out of London. London is now more dangerous a city than New York City is currently. We got some statistics released on Thursday that show an astonishing rise in offenses, with an overall rise of 19% of violence against the person and 19% rise in sexual offenses. These include 22% rise in rape, a 26% rise in knife crimes, and 27% rise in gun crimes, even though they have really crazy gun control in the United Kingdom there. So, it's funny because remember after the whole terrorist attack on the London Bridge out there, Sadiq Khan said London is one of the most safe big cities in the world. London is the safest global city in the world. That was his quote. Actually, no, it's actually getting much worse. And also, they have their big uptick in acid attacks out there in London. They're getting really crazy. We reported on them a couple times on the show. So, yeah, half of London isn't even ethnic, British anymore. And that's the capital of British people. So, it's crazy how quick it's changed and how it's getting bad out there.
Yeah, less than half of newborns in London are ethnic British.
Yeah.
Most popular name is Mohammed.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years running, boys.
Now it's London Stan.
Londonistan.
Now, Enzo, what could be causing all these upticks in rape and acid attacks and violence?
Obviously, white supremacy.
That's what it was. It's the patriarchal white supremacists. But guys, this is just part and parcel of living in a big city, like the mayor said. It just comes with the territory. You live in a big city, guys, from time to time, you may get some limbs blown off. I mean, it's just part and parcel.
It's just part and parcel. Yeah, I guess they said, while the size of the population, number of police officers, and even police force budgets of the two cities are similar, the analysis reveals that there are 3 times more reported rapes in London. You're almost 6 times more likely to be burgled in London than in New York. And you're 1.5 times more likely to fall victim to a robbery in New York.
In New York.
Than in New York, yes.
So, yeah.
That's
if you think
remarkable.
about going to London, maybe reconsider. It's kind of dangerous now.
We'll retake London someday, don't worry.
Go into your last story here for the UK.
Yeah, so the very last thing also has to do with the UK, and also not good news. We got some statistics out. The number of child sex groomings in the United Kingdom rose 64% last year. Yeah, it said that there were, according to the Office of National Statistics, the ONS, there were 1,771 grooming offenses recorded across England and Wales in the year up to June, rising from 1,080 from the previous year. They said there's an enormous rise in recorded grooming offenses over such a short period, and the fact that records of grooming offenses have increased substantially more than most other crimes shows the need for urgent action. So, what could be the cause of that? I have no idea.
And you look at what was happening in Rotherham with the grooming gangs there. There's extensive stuff on this. For something like 15 years, 20 years, the police knew what was going on there, but they didn't want to act because they thought they'd be called racist because it's all Pakistanis doing this.
It's just their culture.
It's the same problems they're having all across the United Kingdom. They're afraid to crack down on these grooming gangs because it's not white guys doing this, it's Muslims doing this. So they don't want to do it because they'll be called racist. Yeah, and children suffer because of their negligence to do so.
And even then, you see stuff like you'll see pictures out of British police men wearing high heels.
Yeah, painting their nails.
Painting their nails, being we want to be more inclusive of women.
Yeah, that's
we want
what
to
the London police are doing.
What the hell? That's all I have to say.
Their focus is really crazy, but at least they're getting cracking down on the hate speech real good.
Yeah, you can. They're getting you if you say anything about Islam.
Yeah, they said they've arrested over 3,000 people in the last year because of hate speech.
Oh, good job, guys.
Yeah,
that was
that's
close.
your priority, right? I guarantee you, if they had Brexit again, it would pass by even larger margin this time. Because secretly, those people are fed up with this shit.
It's all those hate speech spewing people that are blowing up concerts and throwing acid at people.
I lost a friendship over Brexit in a Facebook argument I got with this Asian girl, and she was like, "I see it as thinly veiled racism." And I was like, no, they're standing up for their country. They don't want these foreigners in here that are objectively worse than they are when you look at the statistics. And she was like, that's racist. Shut up, and blocked me.
Yeah, no, this mindset of Brexit is bad. There's nothing good about having a country that doesn't speak your language make your laws.
Right.
Somewhere else. You're literally ruled by a country, not your own, doesn't even speak your own language, And they're like going to tell you, yeah, that law you have, nah, ours actually trumps that one. So, oh, and by the way, I know you didn't want to take in all these refugees, but you're going to take in a few 100,000 of them because we rule over you. Like, there is no reasonable person that would say, that's a really good idea. Let's do that.
The only reasonable people left already.
And it's like, oh, that's racist. Like what? So what if saying, like, you know, I'd like Britain to be full of British people.
Yeah.
So, like,
it's the homeland of British people.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, if we can...
They always talk about, like, oh, we came to the United States and we took over the Native American lands. Like, the British people are native to there.
They live there. Like, they have lived there. Like, what's wrong with them saying, okay, guys, we're going to have this as just... you know, ethnically British people are going to live here. We can have some people, we can have some diversity, but it's overall going to be for, you know, British people. They don't get on to Japan for having only Japanese people. They don't get on to China for having only Chinese people. But, oh, man, if you're a white country and you have too many white people, they'll come at you.
What's the quote? You know, Mexico for the Mexicans, China for the Chinese.
Asia for the Asians, Africa for the Africans, and white countries for everyone.
Yep.
So, yeah. Funny to see how they're dealing with the repercussions of that over there.
It's only going to get worse.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Let's move on to Asia.
So the first story we have up in Asia, the Air Force is preparing B-52 bombers on a 24-hour alert against North Korea. Now, the Air Force has actually denied that, but that was what the report says. So apparently they were, you know, they're preparing their nuclear-armed B-52 bombers on 24-hour alert. First time since 1991, actually. Not anywhere, but just in terms of North Korea. First time since 1991. Defense officials denied that is the truth, according to the Defense Department. However, Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, which is home of the 2nd Bomb Wing of the Air Force Global Strike Command, which manages several nuclear armed services, is currently being renovated so that B-52s could take off at a moment's notice. So even then, you know, there is some evidence. And of course the Air Force is going to deny that because that would freak people out.
Yeah, they're not going to tell you, yeah, we're actually just waiting for the order any day.
I'm actually surprised that all of our B-52s aren't ready for 24-hour alert. I mean, 24-hour alert is really not that bad, especially if it's just like planes flying around. It's not like you're deploying your entire military force within 24 hours. It's like, no, you need to take off, go bomb someone, and come back. Like, that's literally what they train for every single day. Like, especially for people that are pilots for very long-range aircraft like those, that's literally what they train for, is, like, flying for multiple hours. And if you're in the Air Force, especially with today's day and age, you should know you should be ready for any time 24-hour alert. So I guess this is just, you know, referring to just the entire process as getting ready for it. So, yeah. But, that's really all we have to that. The Air Force is, or the Defense Department's denying that, so I guess there's nothing really more to say about that.
Let's go in the
Philippines.
Philippines.
It might actually not be true.
Go with the next one.
Okay, so really good news now. The ISIS siege of Marawi in the Philippines has been declared over. If you remember, and this was for the last several months.
Yeah, this has been happening for months.
In one of the southern islands of the Philippines, they got the city of Marawi. ISIS took control, killed a lot of people. You know, the Philippine Air Force is even bombing their own they're just like carpet bombing their own city to get rid of these people.
Were dropping airstrikes on them.
The U.S. helped out with airstrikes. So they said all that's left is just the last few stragglers that still are alive. But it's funny because that announcement came right when our Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, arrived in the Philippines for an annual meeting of defense ministers in the region. What a coincidence there. But their defense secretary, Delfin Lorenzana of the Philippines, said more than 40 militants, including at least 5 foreigners, had been killed when Philippine soldiers stormed a building in Marawi where they were holed up. 42 bodies were recovered, and they said that those were pretty much the last group of stragglers that they had left. All that's left is maybe 1 or 2 people here and there. The rest of them either dead or left. So the Marawi siege, it's over.
Hundreds of people have died.
Almost 1,000.
Yeah.
They said, they actually got here. This came 154 days after the siege originally began. So 153 days. Yeah, at least 1,000 people have been killed.
Whoa.
Countless more wounded, and all that because just like a ISIS group was like, let's take control of the city, and they just did it.
Yeah.
I mean, the president of the Philippines was pretty hardcore about getting rid of him.
Duterte.
That guy was like really wanting him out.
Duterte's, he's my second favorite. He's my third favorite world leader besides Trump and Putin. So.
I mean, didn't he say like you can just kill him and no questions asked? Like,
no, he was
just kill an ISIS person, like you just do it.
Yeah, and and even in regards to drug dealers, he's like, if you're not going to kill him, give me the gun, I'll kill him myself. I love Duterte.
He said that last week.
I mean, this guy just gets it, man. Like he just gets it. Like if we're gonna get rid of these guys, there's only one way to do it. None of this diplomatic bullshit. Like we're just gonna do it.
Precisely.
Want to move on to North America?
Yeah, let's do it. I think both these stories from Canada, right?
Yeah, both of these stories from Canada. The first one is Canada is asking the United States to help them police their border with us of illegal immigrants. So this week, Canada's Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodall told his American counterparts that they need to help Canada trace back travel visas that the Canadians say are being used to jump the border. According to the CBC Canada's state television network, Goodall claimed that U.S. embassies are issuing travel documents to visitors who only spend a small amount of time in the States before heading north. Quote, we have asked them to go back upstream and examine the pattern of these travel documents being issued and how come the people to whom they have issued appear to have no intention of staying in the United States, but we're simply using the documents as vehicles to get into the United States and then make a beeline for the Canadian border.
Yeah, so I think that's hilarious.
No, it's just funny because, like, Justin Trudeau condemned Trump for being, you don't have any heart, you don't care about immigrants. Here in Canada, we care about immigrants. We care a lot about immigrants.
Bring in more. Bring in more refugees.
Boys,
they have extensive refugee programs, but and we've been talking for months now about the problems with illegal immigration into Canada. They can't handle the situation at all because we have so many, illegal aliens here in the United States that are just running up there because they're more, welcoming. Yep. And they can't handle it. And here you have a Canadian minister saying that, the United States needs to look into what kind of visas they're issuing because it's affecting us.
Yeah.
It goes in the face of what they were saying before about how immigrants, make Canada all better and whatnot. There was some numbers that came out this last week. 1 in 5 Canadians are now foreign born. You look at places where demographics are changing. Canada is facing the fastest demographic change in the world. Canada has always been a very white place. Within the next century, they're supposed to only have between 12 to 20% white population, and this is an almost exclusively white country. So it's kind of crazy how quickly it's changing, and they can't really handle how quick it's changing at the moment.
It only takes a couple generations.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much longer than that.
I mean, Europe's going faster than Canada, but it's happening everywhere. So I guess, the next story we have is also about Canada, right?
Also, in regards to, the immigration problem, out of Canada this week, there's a story that an immigrant was found not guilty of raping his wife because he thought he was allowed to. So,
God.
This guy, I believe he was from Kuwait.
Yeah, he was from the Middle East, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Kuwait, got it.
Was found not guilty of raping his wife because he was under the impression that he could have sex with her whenever he wanted, even when it was non-consensual. Ontario Superior Court Justice Robert Smith acknowledged that numerous occasions of sexual intercourse between the couple were indeed non-consensual, but said he could not convict the husband because of the lack of criminal intent.
Oh my God.
Quote, marriage is not a shield for sexual assault. However, the issue is that this trial is whether, considering the whole of the evidence, the Crown has proven the allegations beyond a reasonable doubt. According to the BBC, both the man and the woman testified that they thought a husband was legally entitled to have sex with his wife whenever he wanted. After a legal separation in 2013, the wife learned that she could refuse sex with a man even if he was her husband. She described an incident from 2012, which eventually led to charges and brought the couple to court. So, these people don't even have an idea that, like, women have the right not to be raped. But, they're coming and not being convicted because you can't blame them for not understanding, I guess.
Let's just bring more of them.
I was going to say, that's the answer. We need to bring more of these people.
But they're living in Canada. They don't even understand these things. Like, they're obviously not assimilating.
They're in Canada because Canada pays them better, and it's just a better overall life than the shithole they came from.
That's and Canada is trying to change their culture to meet with theirs, to make it more welcoming for them. No, that's the exact opposite of assimilation. Like, if you bring in foreign nationals who have different cultures, why should you change yours to meet theirs? They need to change theirs to meet yours. That's that's the point of assimilation.
Like, if I moved to, like, China, I wouldn't demand them to start assimilating to anything American at all. I would assimilate to their culture, celebrate their holidays, eat their food, do whatever the hell they do because it's their country.
Yeah.
They don't need to celebrate my holidays or my cultural things that I do.
We see that here in the U.S. too, and it's
like crazy here.
It's retarded.
Yeah.
So I guess we're almost done. We only have one more story.
Yeah, we have one more story out of Australia. Can you bring this up, Bobby? I've been having trouble getting it up.
Yeah, sure, I'll bring it up. So the story out of Australia, a majority of Australian voters say they're full, and they want a partial Muslim immigration ban. So this shows from a new survey out of the Australian Population Research Institute conducted polling. They said that a new survey showed that just over 50% of voters agree that Australia has changed beyond recognition, and it sometimes feels like a foreign country. And it goes on to say that 74% of respondents thought that Australia did not need more people, with big majorities believing that population growth was putting a lot of pressure on hospitals, roads, affordable housing, and jobs. 54% wanted to cut migration. 55% agreed that Australia was in danger of losing its culture and identity. 52% said the country had changed so much that it sometimes feels foreign. 48% supported a partial Muslim ban. 25% opposed the ban, and 27% neither supported or opposed the ban. There you go. That's pretty much all you got to read about that. The Australians, they get it. They
have a lot of problems with immigration out there as well, and they don't like it. But do they get to really have a say in how these things go? They're just letting them in. Mm-hmm. But most people don't want it to happen. Yeah,
you want to know how bad theirs is going? Australia's population grew by 384,000 in the year ending in March of 2017. 60% of that was due to net overseas migration.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's something else, and this is a problem that you see all across the world, all across the Western world, at least.
Yeah, the Western
at least
world.
our part of it.
And that's why you're seeing the explosion of like right-wing politics all across all these different places. When people like Jeff Flake or John McCain complain about, they don't like the atmosphere of politics happening in America, they understand it's the atmosphere of things happening all across the world. They just don't want to acknowledge that because a lot of people are fed up all over the place because they don't get a say in these things, and they want one because they want their country to be the way it was because they didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
Yeah. No, when I was recently in England, I remember we got off the plane and there was just a normal white British dude, and he was talking with some Muslim dude, and you could see like this guy was pissed, and as he was having some like argument with him, and he just stormed off and he walked right by us. He just goes, "Yeah, whatever, Muhammad." Like obviously that wasn't his name, but he was just like fucking Muhammad just as he walked by. Like he was not happy.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of people in England that they ain't happy at all.
Yeah, I mean, look at Austria. They just elected the world's first millennial leader, and he's like, quote unquote, far right anti-immigrant. I was sitting in one of my classes like the week after, a couple days after that happened, and this guy in front of me was looking at Snapchat news.
Yeah,
like
Snapchat
the most biased
news.
fucking thing you can find.
Snapchat news.
He was looking at these Snapchat news. A now this story from Now This talking about that, and it said, and I saw the headline, I looked it up myself. The headline was, Austria just elected the world's first millennial leader, and it's not good.
Oh, it's not. Like I just tell you in the headline, it's not good.
It's not good for who, though? Is
Well,
it not good
you,
for the
obviously, it's not
citizens,
good
or is
for-
it not good for the people that want to go there?
It's great for the citizens.
It's great for the citizens. It's not good for the people
Well,
that
then
want
why
to
would
go
they
there.
say it's not good, Bobby?
I don't know. I don't know why it's not good. I got no idea.
Snapchat told me it's not good. Yeah. If you're looking at Snapchat, first of all, what is the audacity of Snapchat to make
More
Snapchat
people
news?
read Snapchat news as their source of news
Dude,
than
this
you
is
think.
miraculous. Dude.
And you see tons of like extremely stupid and biased stories up there.
Every time I'm on Snapchat, it's pushing like either some gay agenda, it's pushing like women doing all these like just debauchery.
Mm-hmm.
Like go on Snapchat, like look at the stories. It's just like Jesus Christ, people. Like I'm all for I'm fine with having some sexual exploration, but like kids are reading this stuff on Snapchat. Like there's some hardcore.
And they know kids are reading it.
Yeah, but like they put like hardcore shit on Snapchat, dude. And
You
it's
remember
like,
when Teen
guys,
Vogue had that article that said like how to have good anal sex?
Jeez.
That was
Yeah.
Teen Vogue. Like,
Yeah, it's like guys.
like I understand there's freedom of the press, but like you gotta have some standards.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
people.
like you can put this article maybe in like something that kids aren't gonna read. You
put
know?
it in like Playboy.
Yeah, I mean, not on these kinds of things, man. Like these are kids still. Stop pushing this agenda on them. Like, oh, you should just have sex with everybody because you can. Go for it. Just be the biggest slut ever. Go ahead, be gay, be bisexual. It's not gonna do anything. Don't worry about STDs.
And if you have HIV, just go to California. You'll be
just
fine.
go to California.
You can infect
donate
anyone you
blood.
want. It's not illegal.
And it's funny because they said that they weren't going after children when they're pushing for the stuff like gay marriage. They said, oh, no, we just want the right, we want the same rights as you. We're not going to bother with your children at all. But they're really changing their tone on that. And
We knew that was bullshit then. We know that's bullshit
They
now.
have the pictures of like a grown man kissing a young child on the lips. They have the children dressed up, dancing around, like twerking. Like this is all about going after the children.
Yeah.
It always was.
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, they say Generation Z is going to be the most
Yep.
conservative generation. They grew up with this stuff. They're like, yeah, this is wrong. I'm not agreeing to this.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you're in high school and someone's telling you like, gender is a social construct. Like these guys are laughing this shit off.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was in high school right now, you could just walk into the girls' locker room and just be like, "Yeah, I'm a woman now. Sorry." Like,
You can't do anything, or you're a bigot.
yeah, you're a racist too.
You're a
like,
racist.
'cause everyone's racist.
And even if you're black, you're a white supremacist
Yep,
bigot.
yep. You just call them the buzzwords and just walk into the women's locker room like, all right, ladies, time to get undressed.
And like 10 years ago, I would have never even imagined like gay people would get married. But now we're on to like trans, and we're on
like I said,
to...
you can't give them anything, dude. You
They
can't give them anything.
immediately
It never
moved to
ends.
trans right when gays was like dealt with.
Give it
Yeah.
a few years, it's pedophiles. Mark my
Oh,
words.
it would.
'Cause you give them that little inch, they will not stop. Soon it's going to be, second thought, bestiality, you can just have sex with any animal you want. Like, just wait. Like, we laugh, but if I were to tell you in 2008, half the shit that happened during the Obama administration, you guys would have, like, everyone would have said, like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There is no way a man is going to get Woman of the Year. If you said that in 2008, like, people would bet millions, like, someone's going to get a man's going to get Woman of the Year. Come on. Like, oh, a guy can leave his wife and 5 kids and be a 6-year-old girl. Like, come on. That's not going to happen. Oh, this isn't just happening. This is encouraged
Exactly.
in 2017.
Yeah.
Like, this is actively encouraged. Like, yeah, you can just be a 6-year-old girl. Okay, we're done here.
And if you say anything negative about it,
You're a
you're
bigot.
a racist,
You're a
you're a
racist,
sexist, you're
xenophobe.
a neo-Nazi, you're a xenophobe, you're a bigot. You're probably also a Russian bot.
Oh, yeah, of course. Definitely Russian.
Especially if you say that on Twitter. You're
Yep.
definitely a Russian bot.
But they don't realize that like, you call people all these things, and you just get them to the point where they just don't care. I mean,
Exactly.
you can call them
Like-
whatever.
Like, now, like, if someone calls you racist, it's just like, so? Like, if the argument is still correct, it doesn't matter what you call me. Like, you can call me whatever buzzword you want. My argument still stands. Until you break that argument, I'm still correct.
And the problem is, you get to a point where you can't argue with people. They are incapable of having a reasonable, rational argument with people.
Yeah.
And there's the quote.
And it's
I know I've said it before. What do you call people who you can't have an argument with anymore?
Conversation with.
Yeah, conversation with anymore. Enemies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess with that, we can pretty much end the show, right?
Yeah, let's close out the show this week. And with that, we're out of stuff to talk about this week. Just want to say thank you, Lance, for coming on the show. It's been a fun one. You can come on whenever you want, I guess.
Well, thanks for having me, Enzo and Bobby. This was a fun experience. I'm glad I came.
Yeah, we really enjoyed. You're a really good guest.
Yeah, hit me up. Like if y'all ever need another guest for a podcast, hit me up.
Totally.
Most definitely. I don't have any other housekeeping things I need to go into, though. Do you have any?
Well, I guess these, we're still not sure what we're going to do for the midweek this week. We have a couple ideas, but we haven't finalized.
I know someone messaged us during the show saying that we have to do the JFK stuff.
Okay.
Maybe we could do that this week.
We can do an entire show on JFK assassination theories and stuff.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
It would be. But, yeah, with that said, thank you for listening to another episode of Trump Republic Radio, and have a good one.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.